Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention, we're going to call the meeting of June 6, 2011 of the Town of Los Gatos Joint Town Council, Parking Authority, and Redevelopment Agency to order. I'd ask first that anyone here who is so inclined, if you would turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate so that we can conduct the meeting without interference. And I'd ask Madam Clerk to call roll.
Councilmember Stephen Leonardis.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector.
Here.
Councilmember Diane McNutt.
Here.
Vice Mayor Steve Rice.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Joe Brzezinski.
Here. As we do every week when we are together, our Pledge of Allegiance is led by a member of our youth community. And it's our pleasure tonight to introduce to you Rachel Ahn. Rachel's right up here in front. She's not coming up yet, though, until I get a chance to say a few words about her. Rachel is a third grader at Blossom Hill Elementary. Her favorite subject is writing. Her favorite part of school right now is participating in social studies. The simulation called Apple Valley School. Currently, all third graders are pretending to be students in one of the earliest public schools in America. She's enjoying learning about early history. And I thought it was going to be recess. She plays piano, sings in chorus, and is the Awana Youth Club in the Awana Youth Club at Calvary Church. Rachel also enjoys drawing, reading, writing fiction stories, rock climbing, and origami. She plays softball and tennis and likes ice skating, skiing, and swimming. Other interesting facts about Rachel: she has an incredible photographic memory, and she started riding a two-wheel bike at age 4. Okay, let's invite Rachel up to lead us in the pledge.
Please stand. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's thank Rachel. Keep going. Again, let's thank Rachel for helping us out tonight. Now we have a special opportunity to recognize a particular member of our community. So I would ask that the following people come to the ceremonial podium. Our chief, Scott Seaman, Nikki Robinson, and Ben Boronovsky from our Youth Commission, and our very special guest, Terry Hope. Now, you may know that our Youth Commission is a very, very significant part of town government. And two of the officers are with us tonight, as well as our chief, who is our liaison to the Youth Commission. And there was a program that the Youth Commission devised probably a year ago or so, and it was called the Youth Friendly Business Program. If you recall, probably near the end of last summer, the beginning of fall, our program was recognized by the League of California Cities as the best youth program in the state. And tonight, we want to recognize one of the individuals who's been very significant in this program. I have a plaque that we're going to give to Terry Hope of the Los Gatos Roasting Company. And we're presenting this to Terry. And we all know so much of what Terry does for this community, day in and day out. And this year, she's been recognized by our Youth Commission as the 2011 Youth Friendly Business of the Year. Terry?
Well, I just want to thank the young people that have been coming to my store for the last 6 years to have their under 21 club. And they've just conducted themselves just marvelously. They take over the cafe. They do poetry and music. And they won't even let me in, though, because I'm too old. But they do a great job, and I'm just very proud to be able to facilitate that. Thank you so much.
All right, well, I guess I'd just like to say a little bit about why we think the Los Gatos Coffee Roasting Company is such an awesome business. And aside from the fact that every time you go in there, whether you're a youth or an adult, they treat you so amazingly well. They're so friendly. But what really stands out is, I think, what Ms. Hogan was talking about was the Under 21 Club, which, if you don't know, it's an open mic night that happens once a month. The youth take over the place for like three and a half hours on a Saturday night. So it's two people working there. They get there just there way later than they ever are. They're amazingly friendly. They're sitting in the back cheering for everyone as they perform. You know, I've gotten to be good friends with them. There's always I come and ask them, and they say, "Are you performing anything tonight?" And it's really a great environment, and they don't even charge us or anything. And they advertise the event for a week beforehand. And it's a wonderful business, and I think it's really great how, in addition to treating youth with the respect that everyone deserves, they really go out of their way, I think, to make this town a better community for youth. So thank you very much.
Okay, so for the rest of the council, I want to again thank Terry for everything she's done for the youth of our community and continues to do day in and day out for our town. And we know that we can always count on Terry to be there when we need her. And so, Terry, thank you so much for everything. Thank you. While we're reshuffling the deck here, we're going to now recognize the members of our youth commission who are retiring. That means they're going off to college, and we have a couple of them with us tonight. And I'm going to ask the chief to come up. But the individuals who are retiring this year are Jacob Hirschberger, Doug McLeod, Nikki Robinson, Avi Salem, and Thomas Rappy. And we'd like those who are here to come forward, and the chief is going to do the honors on this one. Okay? Chief.
We have 15 members of the Youth Commission and 5 alternates for a total of 20 kids from 8th grade to high school, college, pre-college to 12th grade. Nikki Robinson, who you just met, has participated all the years that the commission has been in effect and is just finishing his final year and is going off to Princeton. Jacob has just finished, was it 2 years? Freshman year, and is coming off. And both have served very, very well. Nikki has just finished as the president or the chair of the Youth Commission and has taken increasing levels of responsibility and was really a key architect in the program that we just recognized Terry for. So it is my pleasure to present both of them with commendations to the town. Mary, would you care to do this?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of your council, it's my pleasure to recognize both Nikki and Jacob, and we will have these same certificates for the other departing Youth Commission members who were unable to join us today. They say, Whereas Nikki Robinson, Jacob Hirschberger, served the town of Los Gatos as a member of the town's Youth Commission from 2006 to June of 2011. This is the time for you to come up really close so you can get the picture of your kids. There you go. In fact, let's do this. Jacob, why don't you hold that for your dad so we can get a good picture while I read this. Continuing, whereas during this period, both of them unselfishly contributed their time, energy, and capabilities to the Youth Commission. And whereas the Town Council feels that such outstanding public service deserves special recognition, now therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render with special appreciation, commendation, and thanks to Nikki and Jacob for their years of dedicated public service to the Town of Los Gatos and its residents, signed individually by each of the council members.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, gentlemen. No question about it. This is a program that has grown leaps and bounds in the last few years, and has really served to bring the youth into government. The Chief and I and the Vice Mayor interviewed the new candidates who will be recognized a little later on tonight after we've done our next agenda item, and we were amazed at how significantly the individuals who are the applicants, particularly those who are veterans returning, how significantly they understand government now, and how dedicated they are to the well-being of the youth in this community and what makes Los Gatos great. So again, I want to thank the Chief in particular for being our liaison. I think he needs to be recognized for the extraordinary work that he's done to really evolve this program, and to all the youth of the community who have decided to come forward to help us with this important work. And for all of us, I want to make sure that we give these people a real demonstration of our thanks. So thank you very much. All right, the next item on our agenda is the closed session report. Madam Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. There was no closed session this evening.
Well done. Now, I'd like to ask anyone tonight who wishes to speak before the council on any item on our agenda, please fill out one of those buff cards that are in front of you in the rows and bring it to our clerk. Following the next items, we have the opportunity to have verbal communication for issues not on tonight's agenda. So, if you would then again fill out those cards and bring them to the clerk on my left. Next item on our agenda is council and manager matters. I'd ask the council, any matters that you would like to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, given the lengthy agenda, only have 2 announcements and 1 presentation. First, Music in the Park series, annually sponsored by the town of Los Gatos and produced by Los Gatos Music and Arts, starts on Father's Day, Sunday, June 19th, with Livin' in the USA here at the Civic Center, followed Wednesday later that week on June 22nd with the Jazz on the Plaza kickoff with Spencer Day. Second, we have 2 key commission openings which we are seeking to fill as soon as possible. One is on the Planning Commission and the other is on the General Plan Committee. Los Gatos residents are strongly encouraged to apply either through the town's website or by coming to our executive offices upstairs. Last, tonight's Did You Know is going to be a little bit different. Did you know that we have a new fire chief? Appointed May 16th by the Santa Clara County, Kenneth Kenma, fire chief for Santa Clara County, covering Los Gatos and numerous other jurisdictions in the county, assumed duties as the new fire chief for Santa Clara County. Those duties include not only fire and rescue services, but serving as the county's fire marshal. We are honored to have Chief Kemna with us tonight. He has excellent educational qualifications ranging from AS, BA, and MS in fire leadership and management, and he's a local, having been raised here in Silicon Valley, then called the Valley of Heart's Delight, and now Silicon Valley, and with direct family connections to here to Los Gatos. So with that, I'd like to introduce Chief Kemna as our new fire chief.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. That's very nice. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you had a question.
You look very familiar. Did you graduate from Mitty High School by any chance?
I did indeed.
Okay, I have some relationship to Mitty High School, as you may recall.
I think I do.
I think you still owe me a history paper. But I digress. Go ahead, Chief.
Actually, you were my counselor when I was at Mitty High School.
Yes, I know.
It's working out so well so far.
I think so.
I'm very proud to be here with you this evening. I really, truly appreciate the opportunity to speak before you and an opportunity to be the fire chief for this town. It's really a great honor. I'm very humbled by the experience.
Okay. Well, we certainly appreciate your coming and being with us tonight and letting us get to know you. And I'm sure you know by now that one of our primary things to focus on this year is disaster preparedness.
Absolutely.
And as we watch what's going on in Arizona right now, major complication that could easily happen here. I just want to know that we intend to work closely with you and your organization to continue to evolve our safety program for our hillsides, particularly the evacuation issues that we need to focus on during this year. So thank you for being with us. Congratulations on your new position. Any members of council or staff wish to ask the chief a question? Please.
Joe, your staff has had the opportunity to work with Chief Kemna over the past many years in his role rising up the ranks, and we were very pleased that he came forward out of a national search to be the new fire chief for Santa Clara County.
Very good. Any other member of council wish to say anything? Chief, again, thank you for coming by. Really appreciate it, and we will definitely be talking.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the consent, and this particular item is a number of issues that can be acted on in a single motion. Is there anyone on council wish to pull an item from consent? Seeing none, anyone in our audience wish an item pulled from consent? Seeing none, then I'm going to request that we have a motion to accept.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That brings us to verbal communication. This is an opportunity for members of our public to speak to the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda. You will have 3 minutes to speak on these items, and if you do choose to do so, then I ask that you come to the microphone, you speak into the microphone, you introduce yourself, and you notice we have a timer that has 3 minutes. The first chime will mean you have about 30 seconds, so you don't have to shut it off as soon as you hear that first little note go on. But we do have a number of people who'd like to speak under verbal communication, and this is, again, anything not on tonight's agenda. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, while people are finishing filling out their cards, we also thought this might be an opportunity to introduce the new youth commissioners.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. We just approved the new youth commissioners. So we have a number of individuals, and if you looked at your agenda from the foyer, they are listed in there, and some of them are with us tonight. So you were just appointed. I'm sure it seemed like so much ceremony that it's hard to believe, but in our consent calendar, once we approve that, you are now our new appointed members. Any members of the Youth Commission who are in the audience now, would you please stand? All right, ladies and gentlemen, members of our new Youth Commission for this year, congratulations. Are there any members of the Parks Commission or Community Service Commission who are in the audience? Because we have some youth members on that. Okay. One more time. Let's hear it for another one of our youth commissioners. All right. Have we covered everybody? Is there anybody else who's under 21 who'd like to stand? Seeing none, then I think we're going to go to our verbal communication. The first individual who would like to speak is Jonathan Knowles. Mr. Knowles, would you come to the microphone, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Jonathan Knowles, and just couldn't resist the audience here tonight to hear me share this with you. It's our own little version of Did You Know? Did you know that the reason Los Gatos Coffee Roasting Company is the great place it is because of Terry Hope? Did you know that the reason Music in the Park is what we know and love today is because of Terry Hope? Jazz on the Plaz was Terry Hope's idea. I have the good fortune to run Los Gatos Music and Arts with Terry, and she does it to promote arts programs in our community, specifically for our youth. I'm also fortunate to be able to serve on the board of the Police Foundation with Terry Hope. She co-chairs the annual Taste of Los Gatos event that we do every year, and gives and gives and gives. And as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, so much, more than we could possibly list here tonight. And it's not just Terry. I wanted to celebrate just what a wonderful group of people we have in our community. Some that are here, people like Peter Carter. Tonight at our board meeting for the Police Foundation, the chief came to us with a funding request that one of our board members said, you know what, we don't even need to vote on that. I'm just going to take care of that funding request every year for you, for the foundation. People like Ed Munns and Ed Rathman and Pete Gillo from our business community here who just give and give and give. We're just so blessed that we have people like Terry who laid a foundation 30 years ago of opening a great business and setting us such a fine example for others. So that's all I had to share tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. And I'm going to make a clarification for process. From this point, let's hold our applause until the end. And if we're out of here at midnight, then it'll be very loud applause. But to move the process along, if you wouldn't mind, because we do acknowledge and applaud everyone who's going to present tonight. The next presenter is Olivia Buscini. Olivia? You sure can.
Hello, my name is Olivia Buscini, and I am 10 years old. On April 5th, I was walking with my class on Los Gatos Boulevard near the new Panera Bread. I decided to try to do a ballet leap over a tree grate. When I realized I wouldn't be able to make it, I put my foot down near the tree. That's when my accident happened. I fell down a hole between the tree grate and the tree trunk. The tree grate cut my leg open near my knee. I had to be rushed to the emergency room. I had to have lots of shots, x-rays, and even surgery. When I woke up from my surgery, I had a full leg cast. I was really sad. The tree grate chipped a bone near my knee, and the doctor had to use a screw to put it back on my leg. I had to wear a cast for 4 weeks, and after that I had to wear a brace for 2 weeks. Last week I had to have my surgery again to get the screw removed from my knee. As you can see from my pictures, the tree grate is so big and deep that my leg fits inside of it, even with my cast on. I am worried that other people might get hurt, and I don't want that to happen. The tree grate takes up more than half of the sidewalk, so somebody else could fall in. I would like the city to fix this problem. Maybe filling the hole would make it less dangerous. I hope that you will fix it and make it safe for pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Livia. Okay, I know you want to applaud. Livia, thanks so much. And Mr. Manager?
Yes. Olivia, if you and your mother could go into the lobby and meet with our Director of Parks and Public Works. We're actually testing in a number of places, both downtown and on the boulevard, alternative gravel-filled grate just to avoid future accidents. So he'll follow up with you if you could meet with them out in the back.
Okay. And the last card under verbal communication is Elaine Outler. Ms. Outler? Yes. And Ms. Outler, just for your information, the council did receive your letter.
Okay. As you know, my name is Elaine Outler. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, like the last speaker. I am the property owner at 240 Las Moradas. 3 weeks ago, I found out, rather by accident, that the new sports park's master plan includes a pedestrian bridge to connect it to the Los Gatos Creek Trail directly behind my house. I have more things to say than will fit in the 3 minutes I have, but they all add up to one thing. Please do not build this bridge. For 240 and the adjacent properties, this 152-foot bridge would rise almost 12 feet above the level of our backyards and end approximately only 12 to 15 feet from my fence, stripping our homes of backyard and back of house privacy. Mitigations such as 8-foot fences can resolve the privacy issues, but at what cost? They will block a substantial portion of the view and turn the backyard into a box. For trail residents, negative impact comes in many forms. No matter what you hope trail users will do, most do not use their library voices or sidewalk manners when they pass by our backyards and bedrooms. So more people on the trail means more noise. The bridge will increase trail congestion and the related noise, accidents, parking issues, and damage to park and private property on a section of trail already home to an accident-prone curve. And most frightening, it gives the criminal element a perfect back door and their own parking lot, from which it is much easier to access without detection the backyards and homes of trailside residents, increasing security risk for all. This list could go on. I love Los Gatos, and I bought property here precisely because of its protective attitude towards its residents, its history, and its character. It is in this light I find it hard to believe that this same town proposed, socialized, and sold the idea of a bridge to excited families without proactively contacting the handful of residents who would be impacted in a tremendously negative ways, or for that matter, without including all the trailside residents to be part of the park's planning discussion. Why am I standing here now? The bridge in the master plan is proof that the opinions of all those impacted have not yet been given adequate voice or consideration. No, the views and objections of this neighborhood were not well represented in the town's community meetings, but we are here now asking you to stop. The sports park will be a great addition to the community, but the bridge takes away from the neighborhood much more than it gives back. I respectfully request that the council consider our concerns and rechannel the town's resources into finding a less disruptive way to seeing pedestrians safely from the trail.
Thank you, Ms. Outler.
To the new park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, would you like to respond?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I know that Director Capurso was at your home today looking at the site.
Yes.
And he have started discussions with you last week. As the council may recall from the budget hearing, which was your last meeting, we are just now launching the public planning process for the sports park. There will be environmental documentation, public review, hearings before the Planning Commission and the council before any project proceeds. So that will all follow the legally required noticing and more during the months ahead.
Thank you.
And Mr. Capurso will continue to be in touch with you about the issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that's all of our presentations under verbal communication. So we're going to move to item number 8, which is a conditional use permit request for a project located at 20 South Santa Cruz, Suites 200 and 201. And I'd ask that the staff, and it's going to be Jennifer Savage, who makes the presentation tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow an existing restaurant, Main Street Burgers, to expand into an adjacent restaurant space. Main Street Burgers currently operates out of Suite 200 at 20 South Santa Cruz, and Cold Stone operates out of Suite 201. Cold Stone will soon vacate their space, and the applicant is requesting to expand into it. The applicant is requesting to maintain the existing maximum number of 70 seats and to operate from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. The proposed application meets the purpose, general policy, and specific policy of the town's alcoholic beverage policy. The deciding body must make specific findings to allow alcoholic beverage service past 10 p.m. Main Street Burgers is currently allowed to serve beer and wine past 10 p.m. and remains in good standing. The project would allow this existing restaurant to expand and meets the provisions of the alcoholic beverage policy. On May 11th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the application with the modified condition to limit the outdoor seating to a maximum of 20 seats. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Savage. Council, questions of staff? Seeing none, we have some individuals who would like to speak in the public forum. The first, I think we are actually the applicant, would be Ed Rathman and Glenn Thompson. Gentlemen, you have 10 minutes. You certainly don't have to use the entire time if not necessary.
I don't think we will.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Ed Rathman. I live at 17695 Blanchard Drive in Monte Sereno. Main Street Burgers has been open now for 6 years, and our desire to expand has really come about by popular demand. We appeal to a wide range, all ages of people in our community. The Planning Commission supported our project unanimously, and we seek your support also. We can go directly to questions if you have any.
All right. Council, questions for the applicant? Well, I guess we have none. So if you wouldn't mind, we do have another speaker card. So if, gentlemen, you take your seat. The only other card I have for item 8 is Jonathan Knowles. And just a reminder, everyone in our public who would like to speak to this item, fill out one of these buff cards and bring it to our clerk. Mr. Knowles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. I just think it's important to stress to you that Ed is, in fact, one of those businesses in town who gives back to the community over and over again. Not only does he have Main Street Burger, he has Willow Street Pizza, the dog-friendliest restaurant, I think, in our town. But Ed's one of those guys who, whenever we come to him with the many nonprofit things that we have going on in town, he just stops usually in the middle of the sentence and says, "Just tell me what you need, I'm ready to help." And I think it's great when we can continue to support businesses like that in our town. So I wanted to reiterate that with you all this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Knowles. Gentlemen, you want to get up to the mic and rebut anything you've heard so far? Okay. All right, then I think we can close the public hearing. And council, I'd ask for discussion or a motion. Councilman Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go ahead with the motion and move to approve conditional use permit U11001 and adopt the resolution approving a request to expand the existing restaurant, Main Street Burgers, into a space currently occupied by a separate restaurant, Cold Stone Creamery, on property zone Z2 pursuant to the attachment to.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Yes, Madam McNutt.
Mayor, I'd like to second and say a sentence.
Please.
Is this a good time for a sentence?
It's a good time for a sentence.
Okay. So I think this is a very straightforward application since it's a restaurant expanding into an existing restaurant space. And the main questions I had were answered during the Planning Commission, and I found it a really intriguing discussion of how you measure seats on a bench and how it calculated out to, I think it was 7.1. So I think it's good that that's clarified on the outdoor seating, and I have no problems with this.
And I believe you meant literally seats on the bench.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes, Madam Inspector.
Thank you very much. I need to, disclosure, I did meet with Mr. Rathman on this application and looked at the two units in question and the benches where we can either sit 2 or 3 people depending how close they are. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion of this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations, gentlemen. That moves us then to item number 9. This is a conditional use permit for the projected location of 49 and 51 North Santa Cruz Avenue. And this is a reconsideration of a request to expand an existing restaurant, Gardino's, to add seating, full alcoholic beverage service, and modified hours of operation. And I'd ask that, I believe Ms. Savage is going to present for this as well, and I understand that Madam Inspector is going to recuse.
Yes, I'm going to recuse based on the fact that my law firm has represented a participant in this hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Spector. All right, so now to Ms. Savage.
The subject application was considered by council on May 2nd, 2011. The town council approved the request for full alcoholic beverage service and modified hours of operation. The council made the decision to deny the request to expand an existing restaurant at 51 North Santa Cruz Avenue into an existing retail space at 49 North Santa Cruz Avenue after consideration of Ordinance 2021. The ordinance discourages the displacement of retail uses with restaurant uses. Members of the public presented new information at the May 16, 2011 Town Council meeting that the applicant is willing to place restrictions on the expansion, including restrictions that would increase the ability to revert the existing retail space back to retail should the approved restaurant leave. The council moved to reconsider the initial request based on this information. At the May 16th Town Council meeting and in the applicant's letter for reconsideration, measures for restrictions were discussed. Conditions for Town Council's consideration to restrict the proposed use and the space are contained within the staff report, should the council find merit with the applicant's request. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for staff? Seeing none, then I think we can go to our public. And I believe speaking for the applicant, again, tag teaming here would be Peter Carter and Jonathan Knowles, if that isn't, okay, Peter Carter. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Mr. Carter, just, if you don't mind, in terms of this, you may take 10 minutes, okay? I'd ask that you not, but you may take 10 minutes to present the case for Mr. Gill, okay?
Is that myself and Jonathan?
Yes, that's correct.
Can we talk for a minute to see how we're going to divide that up? Because he probably wants to talk more than I do.
No, he's saying no.
Okay, all right.
So,
you're tough.
I know.
Thanks very much. I'm a longtime resident of Los Gatos, having lived 40-some years within a block and a half of my favorite restaurant, Gardino's, and it's on that basis that I'm here tonight. We appreciate very much your unanimous decision to reconsider this matter, and we respectfully request that you approve the conditional use permit modification. Understanding your reluctance to take any action that permanently reduces our town's stock of leasable retail space, Gardino's taken the unprecedented step of requesting a conditional use permit that will guarantee that their expansion space will never be available as a standalone restaurant. Rather, it will only provide additional seating for their adjacent existing restaurant. This has never been done before. There'll be no kitchen in the expansion area ever. The kitchen in the existing restaurant can never be moved, thus allowing the new space to easily revert to retail in the future. The new conditions of approval that were developed by staff will ensure this space is never improved with a kitchen or food preparation facilities, thereby allowing it to easily be reverted into retail in the future. A second reason for reconsidering this application is that Gardino's continued viability depends on this additional space. It's become evident in today's market conditions, which includes continued rent increases, that Gardino's will not be able to maintain its viability without this additional seating. Being able to serve cocktails will help, but the use of existing space for liquor display and cocktail preparation in their small restaurant would further erode their scarce and critically important table space. The proposed food service counter and takeout service counter area will function in a similar manner as now exists at Willow Street and Chin Chin. The food service counter and the takeout counter are critically important components of Gardino's transformation into a nicer restaurant. Takeout food service and counter dining are becoming increasingly popular. This is important also from a business perspective because it frees up table space for larger parties. In spite of the importance of this aspect of Gardino's new business model, and in response to council input, the food service counter and seating have been significantly scaled back, reduced as much as possible, and revised in size as dictated by critically needed storage and refrigeration space, as well as a modest area for display of wines and liquor. The revised floor plan allowed Mr. Gillo to add more tables and seating in the new space. He was able to add a hostess greeting station for his customers, which will add a refining feature to the improved ambiance of the restaurant. The revised floor plans included in your packet. With their very survival at stake, it's frightening to think of a situation where Gardino's is forced to close in a year when their lease expires, and shortly thereafter a Subway sandwich or other franchise restaurant announces they plan to move in. It's important that the retail aspect of our downtown be preserved, but it's also important that existing businesses that have for decades served our town citizens, employed local residents, and been owned and operated by local families receive certain considerations, especially those that give back so much to the town. It's critical that these locally owned restaurants be protected and involved in a way that adds vitality to our town. As more and more national formula retail outlets seek to open in Los Gatos, such locally owned businesses, be they retail or restaurant, become increasingly scarcer and more special and important. Gardino is exactly this sort of mom-and-pop business, affordable, family-oriented, and serving local residents who comprise its cadre of regulars. We have carefully reviewed the staff report and have a few constructive comments with respect to conditions, and I'll summarize this. Gardino's did reduce the size of the counter. The staff would like it further reduced, but it's gone beyond the point where it would be usable because there's simply no way that refrigeration, et cetera, can be placed in that space. With respect to the operational agreement, we do feel an operational agreement is needed given the clear, we do not feel an operational agreement is needed given the clear, concise language of the original and new conditions of approval. They're easy to understand from an operational perspective, easy to enforce. While we don't object to such agreements in principle, we're very much concerned that such an agreement would take a long time to develop and could delay the opening, and Mr. Gillo's already having to pay rent on the space to preserve it. You carefully and wisely protect our locally owned single-site retailers from their national competitors. It's certainly appropriate that similar protections are provided our single-site restaurants. Our local business owners need your help by allowing them the flexibility to expand and contract so they may continually evolve in a way that protects the town's charm and character and at the same time allows these locally owned businesses to thrive and continue to serve our residents and visitors. I respectfully urge you to approve Gardino's conditional use permit modification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, yes, Madam McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions for you, Mr. Carter. Actually, one question for you and possibly a question for the attorney. You said that you have some concerns about the reduction in the counter space.
Counter seats.
Counter seats, you don't?
Well, in space, yes.
So you do not agree with what is currently in the staff report and the conditions?
No, what we're proposing is that what the modification that we put in your packet be allowed, which was a 30% reduction on what was already what was originally proposed. There is a significant reduction. If it is made any more significant, then the counter space simply becomes unusable. It's just not sufficient. It's down to 7 seats, which is a very small percentage of the total restaurant.
If I may clarify, Mr. Mayor, I believe the original application was for 10 counter seats. The revised submittal
Correct.
was for 7. Staff has recommended 5. Staff and, yes.
Okay.
It goes beyond splitting hairs because those 5 seats aren't just 2 people sitting there. It's what happens behind the counter, and you have to have things that, well, refrigeration is a good example, but there are a number of other ones too.
Okay, thank you. We'll let that one go for right now. And then my second question is your concern on the operation agreement. And so this is really a question for the attorney. Given what's being proposed here as the new information and the new way of proceeding, should we decide to approve this, can that happen and give us the protection that we're looking for without an operation agreement?
You have fairly strong language in the proposed CUP and the resolution that would, if approved as drafted by staff. However, as you're aware that the operating agreement was required first for Los Gatos Bar and Grill and most recently for the new wine bar, formerly known as SB 17. And those allow for some additional protections and site-specific, restaurant-specific issues that may come up as we work with the applicant. Since that is becoming a standard agreement template, we now have 2 examples that we have drafted. The timing on those could be at most 30 days for certainly less than that to submit to the applicant, and we would expect to be able to submit it, negotiate it, and have it done within approximately 30 days.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question.
The manager would like to follow up.
If, from staff's perspective, we believe the conditional use permit provides the minimum level of protections required given council prior direction. We do think the operating agreement provides an additional level of assurance and a level of detail, as we've seen in 2 prior cases. We've also included the requirement for an operating agreement because the applicant put that forward as a part of the new information for reconsideration when they were before you 3 weeks ago.
And may I follow up? And then I have one more question for Mr. Carter. But so a lot of the protection that we're looking for is actually seeking agreement from the property owner, not the tenant, not the applicant. So is there any advantage or disadvantage in having this CUP operating agreement in terms of locking down the landowner, which is where the land use really goes, not the business?
Any change in operation of the restaurant would require a new operating agreement with the new operator. Having the property owner a co-signatory to that operating agreement, since we are on somewhat new turf with the conditional use permit restrictions, provides additional controls through the operating agreement as well. Again, we believe the conditional use permit provisions would be minimally satisfactory to meet the town's requirements, and the operating agreement would provide an additional level of protection by involving the property owner as well.
Okay. And then if I might just finish up, Mr. Carter, one other minor question. On the benches that Mr. Gillo has offered as community benefit, are you really have your heart set on that particular location, or could we have some more flexibility of placing those benches in the downtown wherever Parks and Public Works thinks is the most appropriate site?
No and yes.
Got it. Got it.
The witness testified no and yes. Okay.
One final comment. The additional protection comes at a very significant expense to the applicant.
All right, I think we heard that, and the answer is flexibility is okay. All right, is there anything else that needs to be said? Mr. Leonardis.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I was just wondering if we were to move forward with this CUP, that in the time where we develop the operating agreement, if the applicant can move forward with his proposed improvements and have it be simultaneously processed so he isn't out of rent every single month while this is developing for him.
That is actually what we've done before. We wouldn't issue the expanded certificate of occupancy until the operating agreement is completed, so the work could proceed in parallel. The construction work and the finishing of the operating agreement.
Mr. Gillo's indicated that would be satisfactory.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we should move on. We have about 17 speakers, and it's the prerogative of the chair. We have 5 more minutes at the end. Is that possible to?
Actually, I'm just 60 seconds.
Okay. Did we have time on the clock when he finished? Okay. Then you may proceed.
Thank you. So just to be clear, Mr. Gillo is saying put the benches wherever they're needed downtown. And just to be clear on the seating as well, he is happy to remove the 2 of the seats, but it's the counter space because of the refrigeration and other stuff underneath that reducing the space is the challenge for him. So if staff's recommending 5 seats, that's completely doable, but not another 20% for the reduction of the counter size.
All right.
And I won't go into this in detail because you guys heard me last time, but big supporter of these guys doing this. They are an important part of our business. I think Mr. Carter expressed that very articulately, and I would urge you to get behind this one. I appreciate the nature of the King Solomon decisions that we force upon you guys sometimes, and I know they're not easy, and I'm glad that you give them the consideration you do. I'd also encourage the rest of the people here tonight who are going to speak to you, because of the complexity and length of this and the fact that there are 17 of them, that really all they get up and say anything they want, first of all. But if you're here to support, they're here to support. I hope they just say, I'm here to support this, just so you can get some idea of who's pro without getting into hearing the same thing over and over again from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Yes, Madam McNutt.
Mr. Knowles, I was wondering if you were thinking of inviting everyone who's here in support of Mr. Gillo to stand at this point, and perhaps they would feel that that is all of the verbal they need.
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I think we'd be happy to do that.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, But if
I think
if
it would
you want
be a
3
very
minutes
good
for
idea.
everybody.
At the recommendation of Councilwoman McNutt, and I think it's a great recommendation, all members of the audience who are here in support of this application tonight, would you stand?
Well,
okay.
Thank you, Councilmember McNutt. That was a great idea.
Wait. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the attorney has reminded us we now need to have everyone stand who's not in support of this.
Okay, well, that means that if everyone is, the others sit down first. Okay. Anyone who is not in favor? Anyone who is not in favor?
I'm sitting in spirit.
Okay. I'm going to call all the names anyway, which would mean anyone who wants will be able to come to the mic. But thank you for the recommendation. Thank you for the visual on this one. All right. I'll start calling the names, and if you want to say I'm okay, then we can do it that way. But please feel free to come to the mic, and even if you stood, you still are allowed and invited to speak to us. The first speaker is Bernard Greenfield. Mr. Greenfield. Following Mr. Greenfield will be Mel Herrera, Wayne Hosenlop, Lon Normandin, and Carol Avella.
My
Mr.
name's
Greenfield.
Bernie Greenfield. I reside on Forester Road in Los Gatos, and I eat at that man's restaurant all the time. I don't like much. I don't like coming here. I don't like doing anything. But I like his restaurant, and I like him. I even like his brother. I hate to be on the same side as Bob Tobin.
Okay, so
it sounds like
looks
he's done everything he can to comply with your demands. Please don't put any more impediments on his expansion. I got to have a place to eat.
Thank you, Mr. Greenfield. Mel Herrera.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you. My name is Mel Herrera. I am a resident of San Jose, but I constantly make the effort to come here to be in Los Gatos, enjoy the city itself, the town, the small town feel, something I don't get in San Jose at all. Been a patron of Pete and Tom's place for 15 plus years. My wife and I have come here on every occasion that we have to celebrate the good and the bad, the sorrow and the joy. I think that's really an example or testimony of what a small town place does, and because Pete and his family have really included us, it took some time over the years to include us in a lot of things that are going on in their lives. We've become a part of that, and we feel that we're here to support that. Again, we thank you for your consideration. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. Wayne Hasselhoff. Okay. That was not picked up on television, but the word was, I support. Lon Normandin.
My name is Lon Normandin, and my wife and I have been members of this community for over 20-some-odd years. And the only reason why I wanted to get up is that I am very much in favor of family-owned business, a well-organized and run business, which these gentlemen are running here in Los Gatos. And the city, the town, I should say, should be very proud of that. And I am proud. We're very excited to go there every week for dinner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Normandin. Carol Abella.
Good evening, I'm Carol Abella, and I'd like to say I'm in support of having the expansion, love the restaurant, and I think it's beneficial for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Abella. Reverend Richard Bernal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm a sixth-generation San Josean, but I wished from the old Bernal family, wished I lived in Los Gatos. About 10 years ago, Steve Yip, who was a former Los Gatos police officer, a member of my church and dear friend, said, I'm going to take you to the best restaurant in the valley, and brought me to Gardino's. I was shocked how good the food was and how small the place was. And since then, we've become friends with the family. I have several thousand people in my church, and I wished I could bring more of them to birthday parties and functions and anniversaries, but the space is limited. So I'm here to support my friends. They're great guys, hard workers, very charitable. They love this town, and I just hope that you can see fit to allow them to expand. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Bernal. Okay, we have Ken Price, followed by Marie Campbell, Ed Beleza, and Charles Buxton. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ken Price, and I'm here in support of Gardino's expansion. It's a wonderful restaurant, and I think they deserve that business opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Marie Campbell. All right. We don't have a very obedient audience tonight. Ms. Campbell, thank you for indicating support. That would be for our viewing audience. That was a support acknowledgement. Ed Beleza? Okay. Charles Buxton? All right. Joanne Smith? This is going well. I think we'll just go through the rest. Julianne Gutierrez? Athena Puglisi?
I support, but I have a question. How many other retailers have opted to use that space?
Okay. If you really want to ask that question, then you need to come to the mic, okay? Seriously. The answer is a lot, actually. Ed Munns.
I'm Ed
Okay. Thank you. Kat Hutchinson?
I support absolutely enthusiastic, and thank you so much for reconsidering this matter. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Bill Lonsdale?
Hi, I've been a Los Gatos resident for...
Mr. Lonsdale, you're so close to the mic.
All right. Yes, I've been a Los Gatos resident for 30 years. I've been a patron of Gardino's and my friends Tom and Pete Gillo for, well, about 17, 18 years since they opened the restaurant. And I guess I can't say any more than that they're the greatest family Italian restaurant on the planet. I would take it one step further than the Reverend who said they were the best in this area. And as you can see, I love Italian food, and and they are the best. One thing that also appeals to me, and I've spoken with Tom about this over the years, and Pete, is that occasionally I go to their restaurant by myself, and I always feel awkward when I have to sit at a table and take up that space from other potential customers. And with the addition of counter space and the expansion, that problem would be resolved. So please give their application very serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lonsdale. And the last card is Muffet Brown. Now, anyone else wants to speak, you still have time to get that buff card up here. Oh, you're right. Well, you have 9 down here, but we'll speak on the other item then, okay? All right, then seeing no other cards, spoke too soon. And then the applicant has another 5 minutes at the end, okay? Ernie Bottano?
Council, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for reconsidering this item. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the first hearing. I'm third generation Los Gatos. I was lucky enough to have my grandmother move here in 1932, and I've watched this town morph into what we have today. There's a lot of work that's done by council, and unfortunately, it's not always, what's a good word for it? No good deed goes unpunished. And so, unfortunately, you're stuck in a situation where you have precedent and business and a lot of demands by our community. In this case, the Gardino business has been a stable part of our downtown community for over 18 years, possibly 19, and I think they deserve the consideration that you're giving them tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boitano. All right, and I believe that is the last speaker. I think that is the last speaker, so we'll invite the applicant back. There are 5 minutes for a summary, for any other statements you feel like you need to make. And Mr. Joe?
We thank you very much for your reconsideration, and I'm happy to serve this town for 20 more years. It's a great town, Los Gatos, and it's nice that you guys care for our restaurant owners and that we got this another chance to give you new information to make it go forward.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jello. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask council for a motion or clarification. The manager wants to make some comment.
During the public testimony, we have been reviewing the conditions of approval and hearing the comments made by every member of the council. We will provide for you the language changes needed to the conditions when the mayor so chooses.
All right. Yes, Mr. Leonardis.
A question for staff. Originally, Mr. Gillo's application was submitted for seating at the counter for 10, and we came back with a recommendation for 5. And I heard Mr. Gillo's representatives request 7 seats. And to me, you know, I've been at Willow Street on the day of the Christmas parade, and every seat in the house is full except for a few seats at the counter. And myself and my 2 kids and my wife, we all decide to belly up to the bar, which is something we wouldn't ordinarily do. But if there's only 5 seats available in Mr. Gillo's counter, and 4 are taken by a party of 4 people, which is very conceivable that can happen, that just leaves 1 seat. And I think when you're at a level of 5 and 7, it really doesn't matter. I think the real issue is the conversion of the retail spot, which I think we've addressed. So I would be, looking for guidance on making that 7 seats instead of 5. Let's see what my other fellow council members think on that.
Mr. Manager, you want to address that?
That's the council's prerogative to go 5, 7, or 10. What we've done is separate out the 2 issues, given that the applicant said they were willing to go with 5 seats, but it was the counter being cut in half that was problematic. We've separated those out in the conditions we'll provide when requested. I did want to clarify that whether there's 5 or 7 seats or 10 seats or 100 or 40 seats at the counter, there is a maximum of 45 seats in the restaurant, including the counter seats. So if there's 5 seats at the counter, there'll be 40 seats in the restaurant. If there's 7 seats at the counter, there'll be 38 seats. So total occupancy at the restaurant will not be impacted by the alignment of seats at the counter or table.
Thank you. Yes, Councilwoman McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. Could staff remind me, because there's too many inches of paper here for me to go through, the difference that we're talking about in the length of the counter between what was originally proposed, what staff's recommendation was, if that really is what the issue is, not the number of seats is what I'm hearing from Mr. Gillo, but the length of the counter? Is that what we should be addressing in the conditions?
We can guide you to the documents. It's the February 25th proposal from the applicant, which was for 10 seats, and the May 25th. Do you know the length difference between 30% space reduction as well? So if it was a 22-foot counter, it would be now a 17 or 16-foot counter.
Mr. Manager, Mr. Joe, I don't want to carry on this discussion this way.
Sorry.
Yeah. The item is number 7 in the conditions of approval. It states that as written, no more than 5 seats at the food counter. I understood the question from Councilmember Leonardis was that the council could weigh in on whether it's 5 or 7. Is there any opinion from the council? Any member of the council like to address Vice Mayor?
Assuming that we're where it sounds like we're headed, if we're going to allow the counter to be a size that the applicant needs for operation of the business, I would just assume those 2 items be segregated out between the length and the number of seats. So my assumption would be the length would be as diagrammed in his submission of May 25th, I believe it was. And then we can discuss whether we say that there should be 5 seats there or 7 seats there.
All right. My feeling about the 5 or 7 is, again, given the fact that there is a set number of seats that are allowed in that restaurant space, and we will not exceed that, I am not averse to the 7, but I definitely heard the applicant indicate through Mr. Knowles that the concern is primarily the length of the counter and not the number of seats. And if you reduce that by 2, it would mean that you'd add 2 seats to the floor of the restaurant. That would allow us to maintain the conditional use permit, the conditions of approval as they currently exist in the staff report. And that would be acceptable and agreeable to me. Any other council member wish to weigh in? Ms. McNutt?
Thank you. So could someone just clarify, if we go by sheet A3 that's on the attachment of the applicant's letter, that is a reduction in the counter. Is that the 30% reduction in counter space?
Yes.
Okay.
From the
I hear a voice from the crowd that no one else is hearing on television telling me that it's 30% reduction. So
Right,
that
so
answers
just
that.
all you have to do is do the math.
That question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments at this point? All right. So now the agreement that would be pending. Would you talk to that issue? The idea of our giving more reinforcement to our conditions of approval of the conditional use permit issue. I hear it being stated that that we have done this twice with two previous, I think, wine bar applications or wine bar restaurant applications. It sounds like elective rather than essential. So would you go back and explain why it would be significant for us to develop the condition that we had discussed earlier?
First, staff is not maintaining that it's essential, only that it's preferred. The preference comes from two factors. One, it's agreeing to an operating agreement is something that the applicant put forward when the council chose to reconsider this matter as new information. And so we have embodied that into their application as they've requested. Second, we believe the operating agreement provides a second signed document that the property owner would be committing to, as well as the operator, for full compliance with town standards and conditions as reflected in this application. The operating agreements typically go into more detail in terms of police power review and the like, the nature of the food service that's provided in the restaurant, and that's what we've done at Los Gatos Bar and Grill, as well as we'll be doing in SB 17. As the town attorney has stated, we see it to be less than a 30-day process to complete and sign the operating agreement, and we have the proposed changes for the conditions of approval, as the applicant said he could live with, that would make that not happen before the building permits are issued, but before the issuance of operations.
All right. Thank you very much for the clarification. Any other discussion, motion? Okay. There are revised conditions that the Vice Mayor would like you to discuss.
For the applicant, the audience, the mayor, and council, I'm working off of Exhibit A of Attachment 2. These are collective edits from the town attorney, the planner, and myself. Again, Exhibit A of Attachment 2, starting with number 1. And wherever dates are referenced by the development plans being submitted on February 25th, those would be changed to the most revised plans of May 25th. So that occurs in item 1. It also occurs in item 6. That February 25th becomes May 25th. Item 7, seats, is up to the council discretion of either staff recommendation of 5, applicant's request of 7, or the original request of 10. Number 8 is one of the biggest changes, but we've tried to simplify it. This would now read, for the record, the food service counter shall be no larger than as shown in the development plans noted as received by the town on May 25th, 2011. All other language is struck from that condition. Moving on to page 2, for number 20 and 21, these address the issues raised by Councilman Leonardis. 20 would be strike issuance of any building permits, or, so it reads, prior to the initiation of any operational changes permitted under this approval. Similarly, in 21, regarding the property owner, the revised one would say, the property owner shall sign, agree, and commit to the operational agreement prior to commencement of use. The property owner shall submit in writing agreement and commitment to the conditional use permit prior to commencement of use. Both sentences in that clause struck prior to issuance of the building permits. The last change was in response to Councilwoman McNutt's statement. Community benefit would be greatly simplified to be simply, the applicant has offered the following community benefit to offset traffic impacts created by the proposed project. 2 public benches to be placed in downtown to the satisfaction of the Director of Parks and Public Works. And those were the changes that we thought reflected comments by council.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. All right. Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I'm going to make a motion, but before I do, I just want to make a couple of comments. I feel a little bit for the applicant because this has been a long and arduous process, but sometimes The end product is what really makes the most impact and the most difference. We got new information, which allowed us to reconsider it, and that new information was substantial. The competing values that we have when we make a lot of our decisions of what could happen, what will happen, this process that it's taken, the turns that it's taken, has allowed us to refine this application to, I think, the betterment of the town and the downtown. We have some pretty strong language about not allowing restaurants to take retail space. And the reasoning behind that is because we want a vibrant downtown. We've seen other downtowns and what has happened when restaurants become too prevalent. And you'd like to make it a hard and fast rule, but unfortunately it's an art, it's not a science. So here we have an applicant who is a locally owned business. The conditions are going to maintain this being an independent restaurant location regardless of who the operator is. And that was key to me, to the new information. And with that as a background, I'm going to move to approve conditional use permit application U10-023 and adopt the resolution in attachment 2 and the modified conditions as mentioned by the town manager. And I'm going to leave it with the 30% reduction of space that's already there and up to 7 seats, because the total number of seats is up how the operator would like to run his business.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Yes, Madam McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I will second this motion, and I also had a couple things that I wanted to say. Many of you weren't here the first time that we heard this. For those of you who were, I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit. It's always difficult to understand that when we are looking at these kinds of applications and making these decisions, that for the most part, it's not about this particular business. There was never any doubt that this is a great restaurant in downtown. There's never any doubt that it's been a contributor to the ambiance of downtown, to the community, that Mr. Gillo and his family are great residents to have in our community. That was never at question. The question was, should we allow a restaurant to take over a retail space? And we do try to preserve, as the Vice Mayor said, as much of the retail space in downtown as possible, especially the spaces that are set up for independent businesses where they can start in a small space and grow, as so many of our businesses have. We got really interesting new specific information, and the ability to preserve that secondary space to revert back to retail in the future, and most importantly for me, to protect both the current space that Gardino's is in as well as the expansion space from a formula restaurant moving in, which right now we don't have that protection, is really important. So when you look at those competing values, again, as the Vice Mayor was talking about, we want to preserve independent retail space. We want to preserve independent restaurants. How do you weigh those? I think in this particular case, coming out and protecting us against another formula coming into downtown, as well as supporting a longstanding mom-and-pop operation, allows me to support this motion and to go in this direction. And I do appreciate the fact that the community and the applicant in particular was willing to work through this process to understand that it's not about popularity or what the new menu is going to be, but it's really a land use decision that goes with that property and with that site, no matter whether it's Mr. Gillo and Gardino's or another restaurant that comes in there. That's what's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make just one very quick comment. One of the benefits of going through this process is it reveals things that perhaps were hidden. And what we discovered in this process is that we have no protections against formula restaurants coming into our downtown, where we feel at this point in time it's so significant. The independent businesses are threatened every day because the These are not the easiest times for retail. There's not the easiest times for restaurant. And at the same time, we thrive as a downtown because we have this great independent retail and restaurant population. And we know that we want to find every way that we can to protect those independent business people, because they provide in so many ways the lifeblood of our downtown business community. And we are looking to explore further the whole question of independent and corporate retail in the downtown, independent corporate restaurant in the downtown as well now, because this issue came before us. So I think that what you'll see sometime probably in August, early September, is an opportunity for all of us to get back together and sit and talk about the issue of independent versus corporate, so that we can maintain the great mix that we have right now in our downtown. We are the envy of every other downtown in the valley, I'll tell you that. There's no question in my mind. But this doesn't come accidentally. It happens because we do due diligence, and I think what we're seeing tonight is exactly that. So, is there any other comment that a council member wishes to make? Then I'm going to call the question. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now. Yeah. While we have the opportunity now to stretch for a bit, we have only one other item on our agenda. That's item number 10. And so we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay? The next item on our agenda is item number 10, which is the plan development, PD 07145, and a negative declaration, ND 07148, for a project located at 16005 Los Gatos Boulevard. And we have a couple of considerations, and I'd ask the staff, Heather Bradley is our staff presenter tonight. Ms. Bradley.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The application before you consists of a mixed-use development project to construct approximately 30,000 square feet of commercial retail and office space with 25 residential units, including 3 below market rate price units. The site is currently developed with surface parking and vacant auto dealership buildings, which were constructed in the early 1970s. The site is accessed from Blossom Hill Road, Placer Oaks Road, and Los Gatos Boulevard. The parcel is approximately 4.5 acres and is located on the northwest corner of the Boulevard and Blossom Hill Road. The project sponsor describes the project as a horizontal mixed-use development. Commercial retail buildings are provided along Los Gatos Boulevard and Blossom Hill Road. The commercial development will have vehicular access to and from the boulevard and Blossom Hill Road, as well as 2 right turn only exits onto Plaster Oaks. Here and here. Pedestrian access is provided to the commercial buildings from Los Gatos Boulevard and Blossom Hill Road, as well as an internal walkway with a textured surface connecting the 2 buildings. Residential units on the western portion of the site are accessible from Blossom Hill Road and Placer Oaks, where a right turn only exit is proposed. The overall project provides parking for 196 vehicles, which is in excess of the number required for the entire development. Building 1 will contain 3 ground floor retail spaces of approximately 3,200 to 4,800 square feet and 1 second floor office space of approximately 3,300. Commercial Building 1 also proposes a pedestrian entry tower and separate pedestrian breezeway, as well as an outdoor eating patio, which would be adjacent to the corner of the boulevard. Commercial Building 2 is located adjacent to Plaster Oaks and separated from the boulevard by a parking area. Building 2 would contain 1 ground floor retail space of approximately 9,800 square feet, with a second floor space of approximately 6,300. The residential portion of the project consists of a row of 9 townhomes facing Blossom Hill Road, with garages on the interior sides of the site, and 16 single-family residences on the western property boundary. A duet unit on Placer Oaks Road will contain 2 of the BMP units, and 1 BMP unit would be located in the middle of the row of townhomes. The project proposes a landscape exterior setback of 15 feet from all adjacent streets and an internal open space area of approximately 7,200 square feet. The proposed commercial buildings would have a maximum height of 28 feet for the pedestrian entry tower, while 26 feet would be the maximum height for the remainder of both commercial buildings, and 28 feet would also be the maximum height for the residential structures. The town's traffic consultant has completed an assessment of the proposed project, which accounted for planned changes from the original traffic analysis, and the consultants have concluded that all intersections would continue to operate at a level of service D or better during both AM and PM peak hours. The project would generate additional AM and PM peak hour trips in excess of 5 trips, and therefore a community benefit is required. The applicant has been working with the town and neighboring residents for approximately 3.5 years to develop plans for this site. Various mixed-use projects have been proposed and reviewed at several CDAC and Planning Commission meetings. At the Planning Commission meeting of January 12, 2011, the Commission reviewed a plan consisting of approximately 23,000 square feet of commercial space with 6 senior BMP apartments and 29 detached single-family residences. The Planning Commission expressed concerns with the density and site plan and continued that application to allow the applicant time to redesign the project. The applicants have made revisions to the project, which have culminated in the current proposal, which was reviewed at the Planning Commission meeting of April 27, 2011. At that meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring plan to the Town Council on a vote of 5-1, and recommended approval of the plan development to the Town Council also on a vote of 5-1. The applicant is required to dedicate land to widen Blossom Hill Road and contribute their fair share to improvements to both the eastbound left turn lane on Blossom Hill Road and the southbound left turn lane on Los Gatos Boulevard. The applicants propose to fully construct the improvements on Blossom Hill Road in lieu of contributing their fair share contribution to improvements of the boulevard. These improvements include construction of a new eastbound left turn lane, newly striped bike lanes, and construction of a new curb island for pedestrian safety. The Department of Public Works has reviewed this proposal and determined that the construction cost to install these improvements exceeds the amount of the applicant's fair share contribution to both intersection improvements and would substantially improve overall operations for the entire intersection. However, the $24,000 net community benefit for this project is low compared to other recent traffic generating developments. Additions for council consideration could include the full cost of all related intersection improvements, other bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements on or near Blossom Hill Road or Los Gatos Boulevard, or any of the items set forth in the Town of Los Gatos Donation Opportunities Fiscal Year 2011-2012 list of town needs. An initial study and mitigated negative declaration were prepared for this project, and the public comment review period ended in January 2011. Changes made to the project since that time did not result in any additional impacts, and changes made to mitigation measures either meet or exceed previous mitigation, so no additional secret review is necessary. In conclusion, staff has expressed concerns throughout the review of the project regarding the proposed plan's consistency with general plan goals and policies and various Los Gatos Boulevard plan policies that encourage a stronger presence of commercial activity on the boulevard, provide a dependable source of income and employment opportunities, as well as goods and services, and commercial building space that could accommodate retail uses that would help the town minimize sales tax leakage. While the revised plan presented to the Planning Commission on April 27, 2011 does provide more commercial space than prior plans, the type of commercial space is oriented toward smaller scale neighborhood serving businesses rather than larger format retail that could address current unmet general plan and Los Gatos Boulevard plan goals. However, the proposed plan addresses many of the Planning Commission and neighborhood concerns and limits impacts to the surrounding neighborhood in terms of views, traffic, and parking. And consequently, staff recommends that the Town Council weigh the benefits of the proposed plan against the general plan and Los Gatos Boulevard plan goals and policies. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Town Council accept the Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring plan, adopt findings to support the zone change, approve the application subject to the performance standards included in the plan development ordinance, and introduce the ordinance affecting the zone change from commercial highway to commercial highway plan development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bradley. Questions of staff? Councilwoman McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder, I think we're going to have a lot of questions tonight from neighbors, I'm assuming, and that many of their questions are going to be specific things that may come about later during the A&S process. So I'm wondering if it would be helpful right now if staff could run through for the public, should this project go forward tonight, what are the steps, the additional steps that will involve the community as the plan goes from this kind of overall look into something very specific?
Sure. In accordance with the plan development ordinance, applications for architectural and site would come back to Planning Commission for review and approval for the commercial and residential buildings.
Please.
So to translate that into other language that maybe other people might understand, specific plans for each of the homes, the condominiums, and the commercial buildings, exactly what they would look like, where windows will be placed, doors, garages, and so on, would be published in advance for public review. It would come to Planning Commission for public comment and be approved or not at that point.
That is correct.
Okay. I have two other,
Please.
Well, 1.5 other questions.
Do one and then a half. Yeah.
I'll deal with the half. I'm going to have a lot of questions on traffic, but I'm thinking that I'm going to wait on that until after the applicant's presentation, because I think it's a combination of both staff and applicant in answering those. On the community benefit, can you clarify for me what a $24,000 net benefit means? Because it seems to me that I saw somewhere in here the value of the land and the actual construction was closer to $500,000. So what does a net benefit mean? That's not actually what the applicant is paying?
The applicant would be paying approximately $60,000 to install full improvements at the Blossom Hill intersection for the turn lane and the bicycle lane improvements and the pedestrian safety islands. So their fair share contribution requirement to both the Boulevard and Blossom Hill Road improvements totals $36,000. So the difference is the estimated cost of $60,000 to actually construct full improvements at the Blossom Hill interchange, subtracting out the fair share contribution for both improvements.
And the property estimate that is required as a condition of this project is a normal condition for all of our projects and is not counted as community benefit.
This is the land that's they're
The strip
giving
of
up.
land, yeah.
Okay.
So the community benefit has been calculated by Parks and Public Works and Community Development at $24,000, which is the 60 minus the 36 fair share.
Great, thank you.
Right, other questions? Yeah. Councilwoman Spector?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few questions. I'll probably have some afterwards, but I want to sort of tee up the hearing also. In response to Councilmember McNutt, you had said that the architecture and site would be going back to the Planning Commission, but for the audience's information, the siting or footprint of the buildings and the height of the buildings would be determined by this plan development. Is that correct?
Correct. Those pieces of the plan development are in place with this approval.
All right, then, with regard to the exiting the property and going north on the boulevard, I'm pretty sure that I know what the answer is, but so that we're all on the same page, how does one exit that property and go north on the boulevard?
Microphone?
Microphone.
Okay, so there is a right out only here, and I believe you can make a left. No, you can't. Okay, maybe we need.
Apparently that's a no.
Okay. I guess.
If I could clarify, it's right or southbound out of Placer Oaks and a left turn onto Blossom Hill without making a U-turn. There is no U-turn there.
There's no U-turn on the boulevard. So.
And then the next exit, actually, if you wanted to go northbound, would be the pocket lane that turns left into Magnuson Loop. And that could, no, if you're going southbound, you want to go northbound, you can make the U-turn at Magnuson Loop. So that is one, to answer the question about going northbound, that is one way that could be configured.
Right. So, but the easiest way would be to exit the Blossom Hill and make a left.
Now, I have a question on that exit in Blossom Hill, if you don't mind, and you're going to come back, okay? We're going to have two left turn lanes, two pockets for left turn on eastbound Blossom Hill. Can a person cross two left turn pocket lanes to go eastbound on Blossom Hill, or is there some traffic restriction on that movement? And I see the microphone is in the hands of Mr. Capurso.
There's no restriction on that movement as you've described. What would restrict it is if a driver is if a driver is in position to cross a dual set of double yellows, then it's not allowed. So it really depends what the final configuration of that is, but having two left turn lanes alone does not preclude that. But if we've got a striping scheme that creates the island effect, then you're absolutely correct, it would not be allowed.
All right, but that could be configured either way.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Madam Spector.
Thank you very much. So if we try and go north from Placer, we're going to have to turn left at Blossom, onto Blossom Hill, and then do some kind of machinations into somewhere in the neighborhood. Or if I'm understanding what the mayor was saying, we could come out of, onto Blossom Hill, and then get into one of the left turn lanes, and as long as we're, it's a broken stripe rather than a solid stripe, turn left onto the boulevard and go north. Am I?
There's two options to make that change of direction from south to north. There's one where you do make the left turn onto Blossom Hill and you go to the next stoplight, which on one side is the entrance to the shopping center. The other side, I believe, is Camellia Terrace. You can make a U-turn there, come back to the boulevard, or you can proceed further south than Blossom Hill and make a U-turn at any number of locations between there and Nino, I believe would be. There's a couple locations in there, but the bottom line is it's not a simple movement.
But it's not simple now.
It's not simple now. That's absolutely correct.
May I?
Please, continue.
All right. Again, so that we can tee up what I anticipate will be questions and discussion. Has staff had discussions with the superintendent of schools with regard to the numbers in the report as to the anticipated increase in the student population?
We have had conversations with an assistant to the superintendent who did attend the Planning Commission meeting. And yes, they did review the numbers in the staff report, and they were correct.
The 4.5?
They were in accordance with the formula that's used.
Okay. But I mean, were they in accordance with the 4.5 student increase? I think that's what I read.
The school district was in agreement that the formula that we used to calculate was correct. That's out of the general plan, so that is the most recent formula that we are using.
And it was 4.5.
The council may recall that during the general plan update process, community development worked extensively with both the high school and the K-8 school districts to come up with formulas for student generation rates for various types of housing. There was agreement then on what those formulas should be. That is the formula we have applied to this project. However, as you saw in the Planning Commission transcript, there were representatives of the parent community and the school district who disagreed with the results of that formula.
One more. With regard to the traffic impact and looking at the environmental studies, in determining the traffic impact on the boulevard from pending or anticipated projects, I did not see the North 40 included. Is that correct? And if so, was that because there was no anticipated southbound on the boulevard traffic?
The project, it's on. The project was filed prior to the North 40 application being filed. So no, the cumulative traffic impact analysis was not included in this traffic analysis.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I have no further questions
You're very
at this
welcome.
time.
Any other questions for staff?
I'm going to wait on mine.
All right. Well, seeing no other questions, we have a number of people who would like to speak, but the first speakers will be the applicants. And if you would introduce yourselves, and you have 10 minutes for presentation, and then we'll have comments from the public, and then a 5-minute opportunity at the end to sum up or rebut.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ken Rodriguez. I'm the project architect, and I wanted to compliment staff on an excellent presentation of a summary on where we are. All I would like to do tonight is to walk you through the changes between the two Planning Commission comments and then the one condition of approval that was added by the Planning Commission. So with that, this was our first project that we brought before the Planning Commission. They felt that it had some flaws in it. Oops, excuse me. And those flaws would be that the homes were sort of stacked along the existing apartment and townhome project here. Also that there was small amount of open space and that the density was too high in the residential component and that the commercial was a bit low in terms of its FAR. They also mentioned that the senior component that we were proposing here on the second floor should be integrated in the residential component. This was the rendering that we took before them, the first meeting in January, staff mentioned, and you can see here a two-story component that was pushed up onto the boulevard, a one-story component that wrapped the corner of Blossom Hill and Los Gatos Boulevard, and then the two-story homes that would be at the rear. This was a combination of two-story commercial and apartments on the top, senior apartments, Placer Oaks Boulevard, and then single-family homes that would be fronting out onto the boulevard. After much discussion with the Planning Commission, they felt that the two-story component that was up on the boulevard was just too tall and too bulky for them. They suggested that we move this building back and consider that when we were relaying out the entire site with their other criteria. So what we have done is taken that two-story building that was here, complete two-story, and we've pushed it back, allowed for parking in the front, pedestrian connection here, and outdoor patio space with a small two-story component now right here in this location. This is all single-story here fronting Placer Oaks. And the red outline here is the old footprint of the single-story retail building. And what we did was they wanted to open up and make some type of focal point and a node right at the intersection, as well as create additional outdoor open space, and then again distribute what was the senior homes back into the residential. They also asked to add additional patios, and we've done that here. Fountain piece, outdoor dining would occur here, and then a really nice outdoor dining patio that the Planning Commission supported at its last meeting here right on the corner. We also had this as a presentation of our open space previously, and there was a lot of discussion, and we have increased that open space significantly to become this piece that sort of knits these two projects together. As the applicant, Sandhill Property Company, said in their letter, it's a horizontal mixed use, but with this entire open space at 7,200 square feet, larger than other projects that have been built in the area, the Planning Commission really felt very comfortable about this integration. We will be coming back in a site and architectural for additional detailing, but generally we would have the opportunity here to have some outdoor seating from the retail, a sort of passive area in the center, and then a children's sort of play area located here. We also distributed the senior housing that was up above to 2 units located here, and then 1 unit located here. The 2-story commercial, as I noted, was located here and here, and the Commission felt very good about the height, mass, and bulk. And these were just some heights that staff has already talked about, FARs that have been shrunk, and densities that have been reduced with this new plan. We were also asked to create pedestrian links that would link these projects together. There's a major pedestrian link in between the two around the Boulevard, Blossom Hill, and Placer Oaks, and then entry nodes here, plazas, and then the connection between these buildings and the street. So as you can see, the difference between this building, which is not, you're not able to get in terms of entries here, you'll be able to pass through small courtyard pieces here, and really a nice scale, sort of a village scale. The other thing that I think was very positive about this plan is we tried to open up views and vistas to our surrounding neighbors in the way of that the previous plan, as I showed you, sort of soldiered all the homes and did obstruct views. I think these view corridors now here, 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 and here, which are on site, and then of course the view corridors on the public way, open up views to the east foothills, and I think will be very, very much more successful. The elevations were completely enhanced in terms of we broke down the scale and the mass. We added balconies, awnings, trellises, and really just came up, I think, with a much more pedestrian village feel to the project. The Planning Commission agreed with that. Here on Placer Oaks, we break down the scale with a series of trellis, outdoor covered awnings, low single-story mass, and then you can see the second story behind. As staff mentioned, we've increased the building area slightly from what's previous proposal. And then the residential, all the setback, we meet all the setbacks and exceed the zoning code. The residential architecture ties nicely to the commercial design, something the Planning Commission really wanted us to have. Different elevation designs are proposed to create a true neighborhood in the project. These are the street-facing homes along Placer Oaks. And then these are the homes that are will be located along Blossom Hill. And this scale ties nicely with the balconies, the roof forms, the shutters, the recessed openings with our commercial project. This is a rendering that we dropped into the existing view along Placer Oaks, showing that one-story component, and then the homes to the next to it. This view, as you can see, is dropped into an actual photograph that was taken roughly about a little over a month ago at the corner of Blossom Hill and Los Gatos Boulevard. We left everything that's there just so you could see a sense of scale. I think the Planning Commission liked this technique because it gave them a real true feeling of what it was going to look like on the corner with the one-story component out on Los Gatos Boulevard, the pedestrian entry walk, the outdoor dining patio, light fixtures that at night I think will really give the corner some excitement, and then a two-story component back here of small scale. As you know, there were story poles up on the site for our first Planning Commission meeting. Those took the beating of the winter, and they literally were blown down just before the Planning Commission meeting, and staff asked us to remove them just from a safety standpoint. We've since gone back up and located the building at the corner of Placer Oaks just recently this weekend, located here, so you could really get a sense of scale and mass of what happened once we made these changes, which I think were kind of an aha moment for everybody, and basically, really, I think, really improved the plan. So with that, I'm just going to turn over for a quick moment to Kevin Dare and let him speak to one thing, and we'd be happy to answer questions.
Kevin Dare, Sand Hill Property Company. Thank you again very much for your collaboration and the cooperation through this entire process. This process tonight, as Ken had mentioned, has been shaped with the community process for well over 4 years. So I wanted to discuss two items tonight. The first is the story poles. As Ken had mentioned, we completed the story poles of the commercial side along Placer Oaks and Los Gatos Boulevard. And as you can see, all the heights in the buildings have been reduced significantly, and you actually have a desk item in front of you that shows a few pictures that we snapped. The second item we would like to talk about is the numerous community benefits that we've been able to provide through this project. This project provides the Los Gatos community with many tangible benefits, including high-quality retail, community gathering places, attainable homes, and below-market rate units. Additionally, on a macro level, it creates many intangible things as well, including it revitalizes the commercial corners, it spurs development along the boulevard, it signals to the development and business community that Los Gatos is definitely open for business. And so we create many tangible and intangible benefits.
Okay, Mr. Dare, if I could ask you to stop there. There may be questions from council regarding issues that you have, but I would ask Council, any questions that you would like to ask Mr. Dare at this time, or Mr. Rodriguez? Councilwoman McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you want us to do our disclosures now or later?
Be a good time to do it.
Okay, so I will disclose that I met with the applicant team, and I also met with a group of concerned neighbors. As I threatened or promised earlier, I have several questions regarding traffic. So if we could get one of the site plans back up there, and I'm not sure who's going to be the best. Mrs. Spector started down this road, and I kind of would like to go through the site plan methodically, access point by access point, and see if I understand what the thinking is. Did you want to do all the other disclosures now? Or?
Yeah, while they're queuing that up, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I've met with the applicants on a couple of occasions, and I've talked by telephone with some of the residents of the Plaster Oaks neighborhood.
I've met with the applicant, his architect, and Ms. Benjamin, and I've also gone to the home of Ada McDaniel and Gita, I'm not even going to try the last name, and viewed the property from inside their condominium and also from outside the condominium.
I've also met with the applicant team about this project.
And I also met with the applicant team and with Ms. McDaniel in her apartment, so graciously offered the opportunity to meet in her home. And so we've all disclosed, and we've all been very diligent in achieving this better understanding of the project. I also make note, I hope you all got a chance to see the new story poles that were out there at the property. They were erected on, what is today? Today's Monday, I think Sunday?
Saturday
and Sunday. And we may have a question for the applicant on that. So let's go back to Councilwoman McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. So if we could just walk through this, there are 4 points of access to this particular property. So if we could start with the one out on Los Gatos Boulevard first. So I understand that one. That one, you can be southbound on Blossom Hill and turn right into that property. Or you can, I'm sorry?
Southbound on the Boulevard.
On the Boulevard, yes, I'm sorry. And turn right in. Or when you're coming out, you would turn right, and if you're lucky, make it across the lanes to be in the left turn lane, and as was previously discussed, or go straight or do whatever.
Yes.
Okay. The one on the north end, on the corner, that one there. Yep, that one. I know there was suggestion by someone about having this median in there, Planning Commission or neighbors, I'm not exactly sure where it originated. So I'm trying to figure out what that does to traffic coming in and going out, and what purpose it serves. So someone turning onto that street, either left turn off of the boulevard, as I did today when I was visiting the site, would not be able to enter the commercial property.
That's correct.
So they would have to go down to the second entrance. Okay, and then when they come out, they would only be able to turn right. So can you explain what the benefit would be for not being able to turn into that property from the boulevard? And if the concern is to divert traffic or discourage traffic from going down Placer Oaks, could you not use one of those little diverters that you're using on the other access point to accomplish that?
Okay. This median here was proposed to be added at some of our community meetings. We also talked about it at length at the Planning Commission. It would not allow commercial traffic to turn left and go down into the neighborhood. That was one concern that the neighborhood really wanted to have accomplished. At the Planning Commission meeting, they also suggested that a design that met both the town standards and the traffic engineer standards.
Mr. Rodriguez, will you speak to the microphone or take the microphone out? Sorry.
Thank you. Would turn right in this location and not be able to come back into the neighborhood. We have since added that. Your specific question would be, could something like that be added here to only turn right? The answer is yes. One of the reasons that this might be tough here to turn left into, from our discussions with staff, is that as you're coming out, if someone is trying to turn left into here and this traffic is backed up, that could be a condition that could be a problem. So this median helps in not diverting traffic this way and pushing traffic in this direction. And you are right, you can come around, make that U-turn, make that left turn onto Blossom Hill.
Okay, so let's go now to the, that one down there. And
Yes.
either the mayor or Mrs. Spector already brought this up. So as you exit out of that south access point, will there be enough space to make a left turn onto Blossom Hill?
So if you look at your packet of architectural drawings and any of the civil drawings, which are really at the back end of the page, C7 really starts to show those improvements. But if you look at sort of any of them up to that point, traffic, transportation links, I'm going to try to walk you through as you're looking at that. C4.2 might be a good one because it's a fire truck maneuverability drawing. With this project, there will now be 2 left-hand turn lanes here on Blossom Hill Road to turn and head north on Los Gatos Boulevard. Where this driveway is located, as the Public Works Director pointed out, you can come across physically and not be in the way of these 2 left turn lanes back this way. Depending upon our work with staff and being able to make that maneuver, I think is an important one for the project. And the reason is that gets you out into any one of these 2 left-hand turn lanes and able to go north. We've discussed this amongst ourselves. What we don't want to do with the commercial traffic is try to push that traffic back into Oak Rim Way and up and head north to Frank and left at Frank to go north. It's just not a good movement. We agree with that. So we're hopeful that we could work out with staff in the detailed drawings, as we bring this back to Site and Architectural, how to accomplish that goal. There was discussion about a U-turn here at the first Planning Commission meeting. We had gone to a few community meetings with the neighborhood, and that was a proposal that was floated. We came back to the Planning Commission. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll advance a drawing to show you what we had put together for them and the commission. But this really shows the movements very clearly. It's an overall Google map with dimensions on it, so you can actually see the movements. So as a question that you had on Placer Oaks, it would be roughly 319 feet to get into this left turn lane to come here. Shorter than the U-turn movement I make every Sunday when I go to Lenardi's, here at 231 feet, or shorter than the movement here if you're coming out of the Whole Foods Cornerstone Silker project and making a U-turn and going back. So I believe that this left-hand turn lane will solve a lot of the northbound traffic. And we're hopeful that, like I said, that we can work with staff to accomplish that goal. If the council so feels compelled that that's the direction we should go.
Thank you. And just one more. And this actually, I think, is more a question for staff. So it's clear from the discussion of this project, and in particular with the conversation with the neighborhood, that there are existing traffic issues in this area that need to be addressed separate from the project. So what is the likelihood or the process for the town, separate from this project, to look at both the U-turn there on Los Gatos Boulevard and also farther down where Oak Rim intersects with Blossom Hill of having one of those middle lanes where you can get out halfway if you're making a left turn and then continue, like we did over on Lark.
First, I'm not sure if we've looked at the Lark example further down the boulevard. I'll defer to the director on that. As was represented by the applicant, they had been considering the southbound boulevard U-turn to go northbound, and that was dropped, I believe, prior to the Planning Commission consideration of the project.
You know, we had brought that forward to the Planning Commission the first time. Members of the area who live in the neighborhood objected to that, so that's when it was removed, prior to the last Planning Commission, meaning in between the first and second Planning Commission meeting.
So we don't have a firm engineering estimate. The applicant might for the cost of those U-turn improvements. Our preliminary assessment is there's no additional right-of-way required, but there would be center divides, fishbones and others that need to be moved. So it could be on the order of $200,000 or so, but that's not a budget estimate. It's just a ballpark. In terms of the other improvements, staff has identified that the improvements to eastbound Blossom Hill and the adding of the 2 left turn lanes north to the boulevard would be a significant improvement to the traffic flow through the intersection in general, in terms of relieving backup and increasing volumes and reducing cycle times of what is now a single lane left turn that you'd have higher capacity with the double lane. So increasing cycle times for the entire intersection. So we do think that is a significant improvement. Total improvements to this intersection, not only for this project, but all project, would be clearly much, much more than the $150,000 that's projected just for the 2 sets of improvements that are before you, of which the applicant would be paying $60,000 of that $150,000. And the rest would have to covered by town. In discussion with the director today, the southbound Los Gatos Boulevard improvements, which does not include the U-turn lane, is not currently a funded project, and there would be no applicant funds directly towards that project.
I think I'll stop my traffic questions for now, but I will probably come back.
There may be more, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant from council? All right, just a clarification for ANS. How much of all of these traffic mechanics will be part of the ANS process? Okay, maybe to restate that. Will ANS be discussing the traffic movements, the improvements on the streets, the various mechanisms that you're proposing, i.e., a median, a pork chop, those kinds of things? Or is that not something that will be in front of the Planning Commission for ANS?
I believe it's possible if those were to be added as development standards in the PD ordinance, that they could be worked out, but typically they would not be typically part of an ANS application.
Okay, Sandy?
There is a subdivision application that will be required once the plan development application is approved, and at that time that would be also looking at the complete road dedications and circulation movements. And that actually, per the draft plan development ordinance, that's a condition right now that the Development Review Committee would be the deciding body of the subdivision application.
All right. So in our orientation not to design from the dais, I think it's important that we keep in mind that we have another bite of the apple on this thing, so that we don't necessarily bog down in trying to really restructure this, because it sounds like the traffic engineers have to do a little bit more work in this process so that we know exactly where we're going and what are the impacts. If I read the neighborhood correctly, one of the major concerns is first of all, the traffic is difficult, to say the least, both ingress and egress from the neighborhood. That speed hump that we put as traffic calming at Oak Rim and Placer Oaks is an opportunity to get air when a person's driving down the street. and that we probably need to take a look again for what could be those impacts that we could mitigate to truly address a lot of the issues that I hear from the neighborhood. With that said, any other questions for our applicants at this time? Seeing none, we have a number of members of our public, so gentlemen, you have 5 more minutes when you come back, okay? And I'm just going to run through, we have about 10 or 11. I'm not going to ask anybody to stand up this time. Muffet Brown, you were going to speak before, and no, absolutely, yeah. That was then.
Thank you. My name is Muffet Brown, and I'm a longtime resident of the Boulevard area, not far from this. And I first wanted to thank everybody who's worked very hard to make the changes that they have. This is a huge improvement over the original plan. And one of the things that I think the city has, the town has as its biggest asset is the view to the hills. And I was pretty vocal, and I'm still very disappointed about, opponent of, and still very disappointed by the building right across the street on Blossom Hill and Los Gatos Boulevard that, housed Hollywood Video at one time did to that view as we drive southbound coming into town from the northern part of the valley, coming home from work, and we lost that beautiful view of the mountains. So it looks like this may even do something good to retain that for drivers as you look through the open parking lot, and perhaps even do get more of the glimpse of the mountains than you would have had with the 2-story right up against the street. So thank you. I wanted to get some clarification, but first maybe I should just give a couple of quick specific suggestions. Perhaps some hip roofing on the retail might also reduce the appearance of bulk, notwithstanding the developer's desire to have those big gables be there for signage. And I don't know what the rules are for signage, but that would just make it look more towny or homey and bring in more light. And I also suggest, maybe for the benefit of the people who actually buy the townhomes out on Blossom Hill Road, that perhaps you change the orientation slightly so that they face down Blossom Hill Road a little bit more towards the south of town and the Gap and the Highway 17, so that they could see more mountain views out of their master bedroom windows. But that also would be offset by traffic coming around the corner and what lights would be coming into there.
You need to address us, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to, I kind of think the pedestrian archway, breezeway thing is kind of ostentatious and silly, but breezeway is a very good idea, but it could be done a little bit lower scale. But again, that may be needed for signage, I don't know. And then
right.
I guess I'm running out of time.
I know you've
Okay.
run out of time, yeah. But thank you very much for your comments.
Thanks. Hopefully some of my other questions will get addressed.
Sure. The next speaker is Giri Rostam Yazdi.
Hi, my name is Giti Rostam Yazdi.
Ms. Rostam Yazdi, will you speak a little bit closer to the microphone? Yeah.
Yes. I live in the
Very good.
Placer Oaks homeowner property. In 1979, with $100 in my pocket, I came to this charming city of Los Gatos. Since 1980, I have been working more than one job to save money for my daughter to attend the Los Gatos schools. Finally, in 1998, we purchased a home at Placer Oaks with borrowed money. In 2006, When Swanson Ford was sold, I was very upset to see the direction which the builders were proposing for the property. The proposed height of the buildings, which will overshadow my home, was really being discouraging. The building height, which is 6 to 8 feet above my own, makes the sunlight, my privacy, and the hills which I have been lucky to enjoy be lost forever. The noise from this proposed home will not go away at the end of the day with their close location. Also, my husband and I take care of my granddaughter each day, and now I feel that they will not be able to play in this area. The increased traffic will not allow that enjoyment for them. I remember years ago a friend telling me of a survey done by the police. This report judged the traffic of the four-corner intersection of Los Gatos Boulevard and Blossom Hill Road to have a D rating in terms of safety. Now here we are ignoring such information and proposing a development which gives even less safety to this neighborhood. Maybe you see this property as many for the city. Sorry.
You have 30 seconds.
Can I? The property owner may see it as homes they can sell and move on. For me, it's a downgrade for the home which I have worked so hard to keep. My property is my life saving. It's our family retirement. These feelings are strong for me because of the effort we have given and are giving to own.
Very good. Thank you very much, ma'am. John Shepherdson?
Good evening. My name is John Shepherdson. I live at Placer Oaks. This is Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Why does it relate to this proceeding tonight? It talks about at the end about the government of and by and for the people. Now, how does it relate here? I show you two orange sticks. What does this represent? This represents the story poles that are not up. The Los Gatos plan and the Boulevard plan are replete that you've got to put these up and they got to stay up. And why is that important? So that the populace can know and be involved in this decision. Now, I'm told by the developer that the last planning commission meeting that they couldn't afford it. Well, if you can't afford $30,000 for the story poles, then how can they afford the development of this project? On the other hand, if they can afford a paid political consultant and all of this, then the reason that they gave to us appears to me not to be genuine. So what does that mean? It means that, to me, they broke trust with the people because they didn't keep these up. So I'm not here to just bash them, but to me, it seems due process requires that these story poles be up for at least 60 days so that the people can speak. Because when they were up before, I can tell you, the Planning Commission meeting, this room was filled. But when they went down, the people went down. So due process to make this fair. And if the people of this community want this project, then that's fine. But the people don't really know. And I think it's not fair to put up part of the story poles starting on a Sunday before this meeting. It just doesn't make sense. So that's my first point. Secondly, in terms of the impact for children, what we're doing is...
Mr. Shepherdson, you have to take the mic if you're going to talk and walk.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. But I may walk?
You may walk.
All right, thank you. What we're doing is we're moving kids closer to an intersection which now has 20 lanes. We're going to add a 21st lane. It makes no sense to me to move kids closer to this intersection, which apparently is rated D. And in the future, we're going to go to hybrid vehicles, which are quiet, so there's more of a risk of injury to children. On top of that, what do we have here? We have Jamba Juice. Well, where are those kids? Are they going to go all the way up the street? Are they going to just cross the street there to get to Jamba Juice? And now we got kids. We already got a problem at Roberts Road and Blossom Hill Road. I've coached kids. I've coached them in the youth leagues. I've coached karate. I volunteered at Loma Prieta, and safety's got to be considered here. And I fear for the kids. Lastly, I live at Placer Oaks HOA. I'm one of those units that's backed up to the residential units.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherdson.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Shepherdson, 1 second, please. Councilwoman Spector wanted to ask you a question.
About the story poles. When I talked to Mr. Dare, I was also had questions about the story poles, and quite frankly, I would have liked them to go up sooner, but I was thankful that they went up at all, and it did help. The ones they had up there did help me with my visualization. The question I have for you, though, is your concern story poles that would show the residential units on the west side of the property? Would that be adjacent to wherever you're living?
Story poles, not only for, yes, where I'm living, but for the entire community. I think that the entire community needs to know where these commercial and residential buildings are. And when the town standards, which we have here, say that the story poles must go up and stay up. I mean, it's replete in the package that I gave to you, the petition we gave to you. Those must go up and stay up so that people must know. So I don't want to be just selfish and think about me. I'm talking about me, and I'm talking about everybody in the community so that we have full notice and full opportunity, because it's one thing to put up an 8-foot, what we did in place of the story poles is the developer put up a picture at each end of the project. Well, that's not anywhere near the notice of the story poles, that when people drive by, they can see the size of these things and how close they are to the road, and that they obstruct the vistas. So it's me and it's the entire community.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Myrna Veracue.
Good evening. My name is Myrna Avercue. I'm a retired school teacher, and I live at the Placer Oaks Homeowners. My comments are directed to the traffic. Will be directed to the traffic problems. It was a little hard for me to follow what changes might take place, so I'm just going to give you my viewpoints the way they are now. My viewpoints about the traffic. Houston, we have a problem, a big problem. The problem is for everyone living west of Los Gatos Boulevard. These are the 28 Placer Oaks units, the 284 apartment dwellers, the 30-plus homes on Placer Oaks Road, and the parents going to and from the nursery school that's on Placer Oaks. Currently, trying to turn east from Oak Rim Way onto Blossom Hill Road is very dangerous. There's continual traffic both ways, from Placer Oaks, on Blossom Hill Way, and also on Los Gatos Boulevard. The traffic is just continual. So it's really hard to make a left-hand turn. It's almost suicidal to try to do that. Not allowing time to get across the traffic to go into the left turn lanes at the intersection light and then turning east. In other words, people on the west side of Los Gatos Boulevard, in order for them to go to any of the places like the Bank of America, the Lunardi's, the Whole Foods, any place in that direction, we have to find other ways to get there. The other possibility, one possibility is to turn right from Placer Oaks, but there's not really enough time to get over to the left-hand turn lane to make a left-hand turn going east. This is going to be the same problem for the Sand Hill property homeowners as it is. Another solution is to wind through the neighborhood down to Jiffy Market area, make a right-hand turn, and then going either south or east, whichever direction you want to go. I have two solutions for the
Ms. Severque, we're going to have to hold on that,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
Ada McDaniel?
I'm Ada McDaniel of Placer Oaks HOA. We thank Heather for her aid in processing our materials, and we also appreciate the visits with the council members. Your time is limited for such, and we thank you. The Los Gatos Code says that with developments, adjacent properties will not be adversely affected. The Los Gatos Boulevard Plan says new developments must be designed in order to minimize adverse impacts upon adjacent residential areas. From the general plan, page 5, new construction should not prohibit uses that may lead to deterioration of residential uses or adversely impact public safety. This proposal, we feel, is causing these adversities to us, its closest neighbors. Sunlight, privacy, and our surrounding views are going to be lost. You, as our town leaders, are charged with protecting community investments when what is being proposed impairs the living circumstances of those existing properties. We gave you pictures which show these impairments to us and to the nearby neighbors. If this proposal is approved, I can envision the property ads praising the homes for sale and the wonderful views of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Our views of those surrounding mountains will be lost and sold by the developer for his profits. We've given you a petition of 150-plus signatures. We visited only those neighbors closest and most directly affected by this proposal. I can count on one hand those who were reticent to sign. They realize the traffic which now dominates their streets will increase with this new proposal. They can also see the jeopardy to children living on that property. In the midst of their homes is a massive 20-lane four-way intersection. Within their space, large trucks will be coming to service stores, and cars will be bringing visitors to shop. These circumstances are a recipe for accidents to happen and possible litigation to occur. This neighborhood petition was signed by 85 to 90% of those contacted. So you see, it isn't just me talking to you, but it is the 150-plus people who in this room speaking to you with their signatures. Extrapolate that with the town populace, and you are hearing many echoes of concern. All of us implore you, deny this proposal. Los Gatos can do much better.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. David Green?
My name is David Green. I live on Frank Avenue. Several years ago, a single 1,000 square foot home in this neighborhood was replaced by two oversized buildings after uprooting and killing 24 mature trees. The developer took my wife and I to one side when we objected and said, "It is useless for you to object. Even if the planning commission rejects our plan, the town council will approve it." You did. Tonight I asked my wife if she would be here. She refused, saying, "What's the point? They've already made up their minds. And nothing will stop them from giving developers the license to go ahead." I fear she'll be right, but maybe this particular group will have an agenda that is no longer runs parallel to the developers and speculative investors that we have in this town, and you will realize that change is made. You cannot continue to desecrate and destroy our neighborhoods. Plot by plot, you have transferred formerly beautiful Los Gatos into a noisy, overcrowded, and unsafe town. There are more accidents now on the streets. People are being injured and killed. Our roads and streets are blocked with traffic and proposed developments. Tonight we have heard that this plan hasn't even been fully developed and accepted. At the very least, you should reject it and send it back and say, you must now go through the Planning Commission again and have the full information that's available on the road traffic, which is horrendous and will get worse. But most importantly, we need safety, and this council is not showing regard for safety of its citizens. You must do that. Please, enough is enough. Change your mission to beautifying town and making it safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Wanda Hunter?
Trying to not step on toes more ways than one. My name is Wanda Hunter, and I'm a resident of the Placer Oaks homeowners. My husband and I bought a townhouse there about 22 years ago. And so I live on the west side of Los Gatos, right behind where all this development will about to occur. I'm also a child psychotherapist, and I have a practice, and my office is on Los Gatos Boulevard on the east side. So I am surrounded by traffic all the time and have tried to negotiate living there and also working there. I am very, very, very concerned that the traffic is not being addressed. Having lived there for 22 years, and you have all these circuitous ways, when you add 25 residents with at least 50 cars, 2 per person, and plus the number of visitors or people coming in to shop, is going to make it even more of a nightmare. There's a traffic problem now. It will only get worse with this development. I know the architect showed a picture of Los Gatos Boulevard with a few cars on there. I don't know when you took that, maybe, but I've never seen Los Gatos and Boulevard and Blossom Hill with those few cars. So I plead you to send us back. It's not ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Adams?
Mayor, Town Council, thank you for letting us speak tonight. My name is Carol Adams. I'm a resident. I'm also a teacher at Blossom Hill Elementary School in Los Gatos. 3 points, and you pretty much heard them, so I'll be brief. We are concerned about the density for the schools. The traffic is the main issue when I talk about density. We have encouraged our kids this year. We have a traffic safety committee. We're trying to get the kids to walk to school, to get out of the car and back onto the streets. We have guards. I mean, it's been really interesting. It's part of our green team. Because these traffic issues have not been resolved, I don't think we can be doing this with the kids. Right now, we know that if the traffic, if the highways, if the roads all around this development remain as they are, it's already crowded. There's no doubt about it. If we can't do something more drastic than what we've seen tonight, then all the communities will be used as drive-throughs. We see it already without this added. I'm all for the development. I want to see this property developed, and you certainly have made some great improvements. But the traffic and our children need to be a concern. And then beyond this are the other 5 properties that are between our schools, Louise Van Meter and Lark Avenue. So I see the traffic as being more important than just this one development, this one time. Our children are really our future. Please consider the traffic issue before you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Woody Needham?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Woody Needham, and I live on Azalea Way in Los Gatos. Thanks for having this hearing and considering our comments. I'm not going to belabor the traffic issue. You clearly have your finger on the pulse of that issue. It's a mess. I would just ask you that you consider the traffic issue on this development in conjunction with all the other developments that are going on the boulevard and in Los Gatos, and how they all join and create a huge problem, rather than looking at this individually. I'm wondering that in light of the town's desire along the boulevard for more commercial, why there are so many residences in this development. That's one reason I'm concerned about that. The other is the issue that Mrs. Adams mentioned, and that is the impact on the schools. I was at the last Planning Commission meeting, and the woman who spoke for the school said the 4.5 figure for new students is not accurate. It's going to be more than, I think she mentioned 15. I think that was the number she mentioned. But it's not 4.5, and I don't think there's any realistic way that it would be. If you consider that number of students in conjunction with the North 40 development, the other developments that are happening throughout town, it's a tremendous impact on the quality of Los Gatos schools, and something that really needs to be considered strongly. And then just one final note. I don't think the Planning Commission was as sanguine about this development as the developer has led you to believe tonight. There are issues. They saw them, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Needham. Beverly Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Beverly Bryant. I live at 16940 Placer Oaks Road. I've lived there for over 17 years. I'm a neighbor. I want to rise tonight, probably a minority of one, and speak in favor of this project. I think it's an excellent project. You've got a great development team here, a really good project. I frankly always wondered when I told people that I lived behind the old Ford dealership in Los Gatos. It was sort of embarrassing, I think. Now I'm going to be able to say that I live behind a community and a development in a commercial area and a corner that has been improved. I think the changes that have been made by the developer over the course of the time that this project has been considered should be merited. They've made a lot of improvements, and the design plan, I think, that you see tonight is one that I certainly as a neighbor can live with. Frankly, the traffic when Swanson Ford was there was greater, and it was mentioned last time at the Planning Commission. Empirically, I think the traffic count has been done, that it was greater then than it will be with this current development, because frankly, the cars from Swanson Ford, they would run up and down the street and, test out cars, and even the repairmen would test out cars. New owners, possible owners, would test out their cars. I really discourage you from increasing too many requirements on the developer, simply because this is a very difficult economy, and if we get to the point where we put so many requirements on development, we're not going to have development. Also, I think unless you make this a senior development, you are going to have children, and I think the school district is going to be impacted for sure, but that's part of the growth of a community and the vitality of a community, and I welcome the fact that there will be children in that neighborhood. So thank you very much. I urge you to approve the development and to continue on and to make this a corner, a viable corner, one that is exciting and well worth living behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Bill Gallmeister, and this is the last card. If anyone else would like to speak to this issue, then please fill out one of those buff cards, bring it up to our clerk before it's too late. Mr. Gallmeister.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for hearing me. I am Bill Gallmeister. I live at 16210 Lilac Lane, behind the Whole Foods. I've lived there for the last 18 years, and I grew up in Saratoga, so I've seen the development of the town over the years. I'm not going to make any comment on the overall physical plan or the traffic. Others have commented on that. I do have to say I'm more in favor of a plan for 25 houses than I am for 103, so I think we're headed in the right direction. My concern is with the educational impact. And Leslie Politis, I think the CFO of the school district, was the one who said it was more like 15 students who would be living in this area. I think that's even optimistic. 4.5 is well, crazy, no offense. If there are 16 single-family houses, there are going to be at least 20 kids. With another 9 townhomes, there will be another 10. So I think you could have something like 30 kids in this area. And it is going to have an impact on the schools, which are already completely strapped. There's more housing going up everywhere in Los Gatos, and that's a fact of life. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but if you count up the various developments, I counted up to 600 new houses, and we're talking about a new school at that point. So I just want to urge you, as you do carefully consider these proposals, the impact on the educational system. And that was about all I had to say. So thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Gallmeister. Appreciate that. Again, anyone else wish to speak? All right, then we'll call the applicant back to the microphone. You have 5 minutes to respond to the issues that were raised.
Thank you. First off, what I would like to say to some members of the public who I'm seeing for the first time, we have been working on this project for over 3 years. We're really asking for the town council tonight to approve this project. We've had over 12 public hearings. I personally have attended and chaired 4 neighborhood meetings. We've walked the neighborhood, notified anyone in the area over and above the normal noticing requirements. It's been in the newspaper at least a half a dozen times. We've put story poles up once. We've done renderings. I object a little bit when someone says the public's not notified. I really feel that this has been a great give and take between the public, the commission, and the council. And the reason that I say that is the plan has really evolved. Over 7 times we've changed this plan. And it is a really good plan today. Does everyone get everything that they want? No. There's some things that we can't solve, and that's an overall traffic problem that will happen with the boulevard. You are working very hard to do that, and I appreciate that as someone who's lived here for 29 years. I also think that we cannot solve the school problem as well. I'm sympathetic to that, having 3 kids that grew up here, and I understand that issue. We can help. What we have offered to do with this project, from a pedestrian standpoint, is increase the median island that sits here so that kids that are crossing here will have a larger safe haven than they currently do today. That was something the school district asked us to do. We did it. It wasn't in the traffic report. It wasn't something that staff asked for. It's something we did. And I think that I'm hopeful tonight that you will see the merits of this project and approve it and move us on so that we can build something better looking than what's there today. And with your support, I hope we can do that. Kevin?
As it relates to some of the items that were addressed before, we'd like to specifically talk about traffic, and we understand that there are ongoing traffic issues and concerns about this project and just in the overall area. The town's traffic engineer and public works have thoroughly reviewed the traffic impacts in the traffic report, and they have found that the level of service is acceptable and with the improvements that we are proposing. Much of our community benefits are actually driven towards solving these issues. Specifically, the first was we were solving a pre-existing traffic and bicycle capacity issue on eastbound Blossom Hill Road. As part of our plan, we're providing a dedication along Blossom Hill Road. We're doing all the public improvements, and we're actually making that actually happen. We're not just contributing, we're actually making that work happen. That's going to solve and alleviate a lot of pre-existing issues for historically and also for the future. Second, the concern of the neighbors that was brought out was the issue on Placer Oaks, moving traffic back into Placer Oaks. We've eliminated that with the medians that we're proposing. That's number 2. That's also related to our public benefit. The third issue is, as Ken had mentioned, that we're improving the pedestrian and bicycle safety on the northwest intersection. Currently, the neighbors in the elementary school had voiced their concern about the safety of that particular location of that pork chop. We're actually increasing that pork chop, modifying the wheelchair ramps, enhancing the pedestrian refuge islands, and adding a bicycle lane to protect that area. And third and fourth is, as part of our community benefit, we are actually providing a third BMP unit. And this is actually what's most exciting about, for me, in terms of the community benefits, is that we can actually practically help. And we're hoping that it's going to be a firefighter, a teacher, a policeman. We're going above the call of duty. We don't have to provide a third BMP unit. We're going to be able to do that. So in all, this has been a project that we've worked on with this community for 4 years. And as I certainly believe that we all can't get everything we want, but we all can get a lot of what we want. And I think that's what we have tonight. This is a project that I think we can all be proud of, and I'm requesting that Town Council approve this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dare. All right, any further, I think your time just concluded. Stand by, because there probably are going to be questions from council, okay? Do we want to start, Mr. Leonardis?
Just a question for staff and perhaps the developer as well. Was there ever a consideration to put a light on Oak Rim Way and a crosswalk?
Who would like to respond to that?
I don't.
As far as I know, that was not looked at either as part of this project or in a previous assessment. And to even go back to an earlier comment from Councilmember McNutt with regard to how you could potentially make that intersection safer or not, we haven't looked at how much right-of-way would be required for that type of a merge lane. Certainly something that we can look at some point, but to this point that has not been evaluated either as part of this project or separately.
Okay.
Follow-up comment. I mean, to me, there's plenty of sidewalks. You know, most people do not have the incentive to run in front of cars. And, you know, we have the light up on Roberts. We have the light on Blossom Hill Road. We have sidewalks everywhere in between. There's some safety improvements being made. However, on occasion, I would imagine that there would be left-turning issues or the kids wanting to run across to Jamba Juice or whatever was mentioned, and that's all.
Okay, I want to make just one comment, Mr. Capurso. We don't design from the dais, so ignore what I'm saying. The idea that sight line left turn out of Oak Rim onto Blossom Hill is impacted by the fact that we park people right up to that corner on the northbound side, the north side. If we were to red curb that just a couple cars back, we'd at least give the folks who are trying to turn out a little bit of ability to see what's coming. And so I put that into the mix as just an addendum to everything you're talking about now.
Excellent point. We'll certainly take a look at that quickly. Thanks.
Okay. Councilwoman Spector.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably questions for the applicant, whoever's speaking for the applicant. First of all, again, thank you for the story polls that you did put up. One of the issues with which I'm struggling, because I did visit the condominiums to the west of your development, I see from your PowerPoint that you have views of the Santa Cruz Mountains through the streets. You have these wiggly lines, so it shows that the condominiums apparently will continue to have views of the foothills. But I'm not able to determine from that rendering what kind of views they're being lost, what kind of views they're maintaining. I understand that views are not protected under the law, but I still wanted to get a better sense of what they're losing. Can anyone speak to that?
The reason that we did this slide is there is an opening here of approximately 45 feet. Another opening here of almost 60. 45, 60, 45. What you have is you have a series of views, whether it's out this window that's here. These are one-story carports here. This is a hedge treatment that comes up about 6 to 8 feet here. And typical single family, as you can see, are close together. And the reason that we turned these units is to open this up. It's pretty unusual to see that in the community. Typically, you would see more of that pattern. So anyone from behind looking back would be looking at another adjacent two-story home. These homes, while they are two-story, they look over the carports. The lower level views are blocked by the carports. I believe, in talking to the and well, not that I believe, they've said numerous times, the certain residents that live here, they would want all one-story components here. I think that's unrealistic. In terms of being unrealistic in the sense that everything else around here is 1 and 2 story. Mostly there's a 2 story here. What we tried to do was do this unique plan to really accomplish this goal, and I think the Planning Commission saw that, and I think it's successful. Is it 100% unobstructed? No, it's not. There will be some obstructions. I agree with that. But you will still have view corridors here across or back through here from windows. So I think that it will be successful when this plan's ultimately done. I did show you the first plan. I believe that plan would not have been as successful. It was very traditional for Los Gatos. We have homes, we have a center-loaded street. You've seen it. I have too. I think this is going to be much more successful.
Please.
One further question, and this is a traffic-related question, or maybe it's for staff. If I recall the staff report, it said 955 net increase of trips, and someone spoke to, Swanson Ford was net meaning more than the previous use.
I'm sorry, can you point me in the direction of where you're getting that number from? Or
Well, since you guys gave me about 2,000 pages, I guess I can't.
Yeah, it's hard for me to answer that question specifically. In the traffic report, it speaks to 646 daily trips that would be generated by this project. I don't have the information, so I'm kind of looking around to see if anybody knows what the latest and greatest numbers were with relation to the Swanson project. So I really can't address that.
Let me try it a different way. If there is a net increase number, does that mean a number increased above Swanson's generation of trips?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Inspector. Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple questions for Mr. Rodriguez. First of all, since I don't do this architectural stuff for a living, when you're talking about a view corridor of, I think you said 45 or 60 feet,
Yes.
and you saw me looking at the ceiling perhaps, and I was trying to figure out each one of these is 3 or 4 feet, like how wide is
It's roughly
this?
a 4-foot cell, I believe.
So
Maybe
and
it's
there's
3
like
feet. Yeah, it
12
could
or,
be.
so is this about the width of the view corridor that you're talking about? It would help to put it in perspective for
So
me.
if they are 4 feet times 9, you're just 36 feet roughly in here.
Okay, so a little bit wider than the width of
Yes.
this room
Mhm.
between
Yes.
these things. Okay, that's helpful for me to
Sure.
sort of visualize. And then, can you make any response at this point, or would it be during ANS, should this project go forward, on the concerns about both sunlight and privacy on those residences to the west?
Yes. Again, right now, their sunlight and privacy from the first floor are blocked by these carports. There's also, like I said, a large landscape feature here. So obviously, from the second floor windows, you will see a cross over the carport. These units are roughly 6 feet lower than these units proposed right here. These have a hip roof, these have flat roof. That's the reason. We think a pitched roof is much more successful, much more keeping with the town character than a flat roof building. So if I didn't answer that question, I don't see that sunlight is going to be an issue. Sun rises over here, sets back over here. It moves around the site like this. All of these units are going to continue to have sunlight as they have today. There's no shadows that are cast from any of these units onto the property.
Okay, so that answers sunlight. And then in terms of privacy, placement of windows, and are they going to look out a window into another window?
Well, we would like to work carefully with both what the conditions that are out there and with staff prior to our ANS submittal to make sure that windows along the long side, which is here, and then the short side of these units here do not look back directly and cross into someone else's unit. There's a lot of ways we can do that through landscape or placement of rooms and windows. But we do feel that we've already taken into consideration some of those view corridors and some of those view conditions as we've designed this project already. We have looked at that.
Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor.
Thank you for a follow-up, Mr. Rodriguez. The distance between the units on your westernmost side to the town or condominiums there, how far is that?
Well, that's a trick question. I'm not sure. I could tell you what it is from ours to property line. If you wouldn't mind, I'll walk over and I'll point to it. Roughly from here to here is 18 feet, 15 feet, all 15 feet along this property as a minimum. So assuming you have a driveway at roughly 25 feet, you have a carport at 22 feet, and then you have, it looks like another 10 foot or 12 foot of setback. So 12, 22 is 34, 25, and 15 roughly is kind of where you would be. So 40 and 34 is 74 feet.
Okay, because that kind of answers the question that I was looking for with how much of a shadow those units could cast.
Well, they're only 26 feet tall, so even at a 45-degree angle, it's 26 feet, and they would be roughly about 8 feet into the driveway there at the most.
Okay. Doesn't all answer 100% of the privacy issue for me, but it does answer the shadowing and sunlight. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I think I'll keep you up there for a second.
Yes, sir.
So you heard some responses tonight. There were some questions related to the schools, the school population. We were told that the school estimate by the individuals who do the calculation was 4.5 would be generated based on certain statistical determination of the types of homes and the types of residents who would eventually purchase those homes. And then we have other responses that say it can't be that. It's got to be 15 or it's got to be up to 30, okay? So I guess my question is, who do you trust? Okay, because we're given data that is a calculus from the school district themselves, the school districts themselves, and I believe that the superintendent has been a participant in the dialogue here, or the interim superintendent, and that there was a communication that their issue was not really in terms of the impacts, that there would be a number of individual students who would be generated, but there wouldn't be an overwhelming number that they couldn't accommodate. They're concerned about what they do with the kids up on the hill while they rebuild rebuild Lexington School, and they've accommodated that by portables over at the campuses where the kids will be going. So to me, I have to be very cautious of assuming some numbers that aren't based on at least the formula that we have been given to deal with. So that's a question I'd ask you.
Yes.
What is your sense about the discrepancies that we're seeing here?
Sure. It's not unlike a traffic report. in this town, one of the great things about it is when the town hires a traffic consultant to review the project, the developer pays for it, but the town hires it. We can't talk to that consultant. So we don't know what the report is going to say until the report comes out. You have it before you. The schools are a little different thing, and I'd like to just paint a picture for some of the members who might not have been at every hearing the way I have. We've contacted schools numerous times on this project. We had discussions about it. As Heather Bradley said, she points out a very good point. For your own general plan, just a year and a half to 2 years ago, this was the number that was agreed upon that the school district and the town worked out. So that calculation is the most current accurate calculation that the town has. That was used. We didn't come up with that number. That was the number that the district gave the town a year and a half or so ago. The new superintendent, who just was on board roughly after the January hearing, so it couldn't have been very long, 6 months, said, and I'm paraphrasing here, we're not really, we can handle the kids that come out of this project. We know we can handle it. We will find a way, is exactly what she said. Now, the bigger number, perception from members who are in the community like us, that number may not work, but technically they're not putting the number together. The school district is. And so I would just say that this number that is used is the most accurate information we have, and same with the town. That's how the number came up.
All right, thank you. Another comment or question, it relates to the story polls.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, story polls, the story that is attempted to be told is what's the mass and scale.
Yes.
Structure. It's not, that's the primary goal. It does serve a secondary goal of alerting people to the fact that something's going to happen. But I remember when that story poll configuration occurred at the front end.
Yes.
And I was driving down the boulevard, and that northeast corner, right there in Placer Oaks, that thing was sitting out there on the street, as high as it could be, and I said, who are we kidding on this one? And it took probably an hour and a half to get 3 phone calls from people saying, there is this huge thing going up there at Placer Oaks and Boulevard, and what are you guys doing? Because it's always, the phone calls always end up with, what are you guys doing? Okay, that's kind of how it works. And we said, well, we're not doing anything. This is the part of the process that we're evolving. I've got to say that I would have appreciated the revised story polls that were put up this weekend if they had been put up a week before.
Yes.
I think it would have been much more to our benefit and the neighbors' benefit to see what that's going to look like. But what I did appreciate was the fact that it's a diminutive structure at this point, at that corner, that it is much different than the original. And I've got to attribute that to the work that you've pointed out between the neighbors and yourselves, between the Planning Commission and yourselves, and the staff and yourselves, to listen to what's been going on. And in some ways, I think that we've demonstrated the best way to do project development, even though obviously not everyone agrees. Okay, I think what we've got at this point is a much different project than what we had at the front end, and it only happened because of all parties being interested in cooperating. So when I look at this, I'm thinking, okay, these 35-foot view corridors that will allow some access to the view shed for the residents in the condominium complex. That is certainly an amendment that's beneficial from the first. I think the other factor is that there will be attractive residences there. When I look out my back windows, there are homes that I'm living with, and it's just part of being in the neighborhood fabric. And I can't imagine that what's there now is very attractive. If you're looking out your second-story window onto the residue of the Swanson Ford project, and envisioning that as something that benefits your view shed. So I heard a lot of compromising taking place, And I want to say, I think particularly the Planning Commission needs to be given all kinds of kudos on this one. That the direction of the project changed exponentially when the Planning Commission weighed in, and that the recommendations fought through in that 4-hour session that you folks have with the Planning Commission really did benefit the project, no question about it. In reading the verbatim minutes of that particular meeting, and I wish you'd all have the opportunity to do that, or at least to review the tape, although why would you spend 4 hours doing that? But if you had the chance to do that, I think you'd see what astute recommendations were being made by the Commission in that meeting that obviously were picked up by your team to produce the product that you've got. I have concerns about traffic, but I also know that in some ways, when we put a development in place, the onerous traffic that we project never seems to materialize. You've already got a pre-existing condition on the boulevard in Blossom Hill. I live down the block on the boulevard, so I know full well what the boulevard's like. But the fact that probably those numbers will not generate the kind of impact that is envisioned, because people don't tend to act that way. Human behavior isn't, we all queue up at 7:30 in the morning to go to work. We somehow find ourselves adjusting to the ebb and flow of traffic on the major streets. So my concern probably is, as you take this further, be very attentive to the traffic issues, work very strongly with our staff to deal with those things that are going to have impacts. Watch all your turns so that you're not, by trying to mitigate some of these issues, causing other issues, because this kind of law of unintended consequences works in a lot of cases. So to me, that's an area that really needs to be studied diligently. I'd also say take a very strong look at what happens in the Placer Oaks neighborhood, not just at Oak Rim, but all the way down Placer Oaks and into the neighborhood, because I think there's some things that legitimately should be addressed. And working with the neighbors in kind of an extended traffic calming effort at that point would be a good outcome from this particular project. Okay. Any other comments, questions,
Mr. Mayor? Just had a question about the process. If this were put forward this evening, would the housing go in first? Would the commercial go in first? Would it go in at the same time? And then what is the time frame to complete this project? There's been discussion about the schools and the amount of students. And when I see 25 homes, I see 50 kids because I think of the nuclear family. However, 50 kids may not be the end of the world. I know we have other developments coming, and those have to be addressed at those times. But then I think there could be some attrition over, say, 18 months or 2 years. When the developer goes to sell these properties, there's going to be advertising saying Los Gatos Schools and these kinds of things, as opposed to waiting list for Los Gatos Schools. So I just want to find out if what the time frame is on that.
I appreciate the questions. One of, as the mayor had mentioned, and Sav had mentioned, that there was a due process that we're going to work through to actually identify the plan and the scope of the project itself, and work with the community to understand what is ultimately the best look and feel of the actual homes. And so from a process standpoint, we're going to work very diligently right away to engage the community as well as through the process. So our process is probably the next 9 to 12 months. We're hopefully to be in construction, and it'll probably take a period of time of another 12 to 18 months to complete. And so in that process, we will be working with the schools as well as the community to make sure this project actually fits well into the fabric of the neighborhood as well.
So a period of about 2.5 years.
Probably a little less than that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Leonardis, I would like to call your attention to the PD ordinance. There is a project phasing standard that would require the commercial structures to be built basically prior to or in conjunction with the residential, and not the residential first.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council or a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Leonardis?
Just a few more general comments. Just a lot of talk about traffic, a lot of talk about the schools, the boulevard. Los Gatos is changing. There's a lot of these projects coming online that they're asking for zoning changes. And, this project to me represents a lot of what Los Gatos is currently, and perhaps a snapshot into the future with what Los Gatos might become with some of these new developments. We've recently attended the North 40 hearings, and there's been a lot of discussion about what people want. And a lot of what we're seeing with this project is what was proposed from the initial studies and the focus groups from the North 40 meetings. So I would like to commend the development team on this for how far they've come over a period of time. I know probably when this property was purchased in 2006 or something, there was different intentions. Maybe at one point in time it would have been all commercial, maybe it would have been one large store. But it looks to me like this is kind of what's trending now. A little bit of retail, a little bit of office, a little bit of townhomes, single-family homes, restaurants, and I like the fact that you put a public park in there. I think that's going to be a huge benefit for that neighborhood. I applaud the Planning Commission and again the developers for working the public process. I did hear all the neighbors, the surrounding communities. I listened to I read the Planning Commission minutes about the traffic and the parking on Placer Oaks and these kinds of things. I think a lot of these issues can be resolved, but we have to look and remember what was there previously, which was a large car dealership, Akina Solar. There's probably a auto repair shop in the back there, a body shop, all these kinds of things. And they haven't been present for a long time, so we forget what was there. I think, what Mr. Rodriguez has done to put those view corridors in is remarkable. To say the least, for what this development could have been. There's been great effort put forth to listen to the concerns of the surrounding community. About the only thing I question with the design, and I don't want to design from the dais, but the node out on the corner of the tower, is that really necessary? And to see if any of the other council members would have a comment on that, because I think you have an elegantly understated design, and I kind of think of, you have this Bentley and you put tail fins on it or something like that. Is it really something that needs to be done, considering there's the tower on the other corner? I don't want to call it a tower, but the node on the other corner. And that was my biggest concern at this point with the project, other than the schools and some of the other concerns that I think can be worked through. So,
thank you. Any other comments from council or a motion? Madam McNutt.
Thank you. I was hesitating because I thought Mr. Leonardis was heading towards a motion, so, but I guess not. I want to echo what the mayor said about really offering praise to the Planning Commission, to the development team, and to the neighborhood, because I know there was strong neighborhood input all the way along that really seriously changed the scope and the look and feel of this project. I was on CDAC when the first plan came in, which probably fit the requirements of some Planning 101 somewhere, of pack as much density and intensity into a corner like that as you can. But I think we shut that one down pretty fast and sent it back. And I do think that what has resulted is a project that is going to fit in very nicely in the neighborhood, notwithstanding the fears about impacts and not disregarding the concerns about traffic. I wanted to talk about the school issue for a moment. The interesting thing, I don't know how the people who run schools can sleep at night because they have to take every child who lives in the area, and how do you estimate on any given neighborhood, if you have 25 homes, you could have 3 or 4 children per home, or you could have no children per home. And I'm going to tell you something you might not know. We just got the census report for Los Gatos, which confirmed, which has been the case for the last 10 years, less than 25% of the households in Los Gatos have a child less than 18 living there. I mean, we think of this as a family community. Our assumption is that every house has children going to our schools. If you look at 5 council members up here, only 1 has children going to our schools. 25%. So if you take 25%, I mean, how in the world do you figure out who's going to actually move in there and how many children they're going to have is something that you just can't figure out. They have a formula. It's what they go by. It could be a full range from 0 to who knows. But that's just what you have to deal with when you are having a neighborhood. That can happen in any of the existing neighborhoods in Los Gatos. I feel like the ANS process is going to be able to fine-tune any of the additional concerns that the immediately adjacent neighbors have regarding privacy or any of those other issues. I continue to be concerned about traffic overall, which is separate from this project. I'm skeptical about that median on Placer Oaks and blocking off the ability of people coming into the commercial area from making a left turn and getting them off of Placer Oaks as soon as possible and into the shopping center. But my understanding is that this is what the neighbors and the developer have worked out. So I'm not going to stand in the way of that because I don't know anything more about traffic engineering than you do. So we give it our best shot and hope that people actually behave the way that they are being directed to behave with the impediments that are being put into place. So given all of that, given how far we've come, and given how it is going to add 25 high-quality residences and some real nice residential serving commercial to our community, I am prepared to make a motion. And the easy way to do this is to recommend, to accept the recommendation of the staff as indicated in the staff report. And that would be to accept the Planning Commission's findings and recommendations, to uphold the Planning Commission's recommendations to adopt the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigation monitoring plan, and to adopt findings supporting the zone change that are listed in Attachment 9, and approve the application, and so on, and that's detailed in Attachment 10.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? Vice Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and second the motion. I'd like to make a couple of quick comments, if I may. I don't want to belabor the point, but I also want to thank the Planning Commission, the developers, the neighbors for what has taken a kind of a tough project to begin with and made something that I think really, in the end, we'll all be proud of. With regard to traffic, that intersection's bad. And anything you put there on that piece of property is going to make it worse. And there's nothing we can do about that at this moment. It is a commercial piece of property, and commercial is going to be going to generate traffic. That's kind of a given. With regard to the schools, and I try to stay away from anecdotal evidence, but I went to Los Gatos High School, and when I graduated, my graduating class was 550, and there were 2,300 students in the school at that time. And they have built 3 new classroom buildings since then. They've lost one, and they lost some portables, but they've had a net increase in classes, and they expressed concern over their population of students getting to 1,700. I think, at least from the high school perspective, I can't speak to the elementary schools, but from the high school perspective, there is capacity there. And the school district has done a tremendous job of building new facilities. The community has supported the schools with bond measures and the like to allow increased capacity. And I know they're bursting at the seams. But as the school districts themselves said, they will find a way to take those kids. And I don't know if it's 4 kids or 40 kids that are going to come out of 25 residences, but I think that this has the potential to be a tremendous community in and of itself that we will all be proud of. So I'm going to be supporting this.
Ms. Spector?
Thank you. I figured you were supporting it because I think you seconded it, right?
Yes.
There were 3 major issues for me, because I look at all of these developments carefully. We all do. There's schools, traffic, and then for me the vistas, the view sheds between the condominiums and the development on the west side. With regard to the schools, none of us know how many students will be generated. However, staff has worked with the school district staff, and there is a formula, and our staff, our general plan, and the school district staff have come up with something that is acceptable to them. My feeling is if the school district had so much concern that this specific project was going to generate so many students that they couldn't deal with them, we would have superintendents here tonight, and we don't. So I am comfortable that at this point, the school district at every level, school districts at every level, will be able to incorporate whatever number of students come from this development. Traffic. Traffic is a real concern for me, and I am hopeful that when we get the next Boulevard or North 40 project, I should forget North 40, Boulevard project, that it will have as part of its calculations the number of trips being generated south from North 40, and don't leave that out of the calculation. But once again, I am comfortable to a soft extent that the amount of traffic will be hopefully not any worse than it is now, and with the reconfigurations better than it is now. It is very difficult to navigate that part of the boulevard and having to go down south Spinneyue through somebody's neighborhood and then come back up north. So I'm hopeful that it won't be worse. I'm going to support the motion, and I'm going to give, I'm hopeful that the developer, when they get to whatever tweaking they can do at the A&S level, will pay careful attention to the view sheds between the west side development and the condominiums. I am very concerned about that. I am concerned because I'm just that kind of person, but also because I went into their condominiums and I looked through their windows, and I'm hopeful that their vistas will not all be blocked, because we live in Los Gatos for the most part because of those hillsides, and I don't want this specific group of people to lose those hillsides. I appreciate the 40 feet that you're putting, so I just encourage you to continue to work with the neighbors, and I thank you all.
Okay, and just some final comments. I will be supporting the motion, and I didn't second it, so I'm pretty much free to go whichever way I want. I agree with everything that's been said so far in terms of summation. I think that one thing I'd like to comment on is the way that we have reduced the intensity of what was initially proposed there. It is a very difficult intersection, but it is a key hub to this community. It's a north, south, east, west hub. You get through town in either direction by using the Boulevard or Blossom Hill. Those are pretty much the major streets that take you from one side of town to the other. It is therefore absolutely essential that we continue to make sure that it it be used in as appropriate fashion as we can, and that's why we're thinking of the Complete Streets concept, where we can look at the next iteration of how we build out our streets and make sure that they are bicycle and pedestrian friendly as well as automobile driven, so to speak. Slowing down the speeds would be something that would absolutely benefit all of us. If you slow down the speed, you actually increase capacity of streets. So there are some things that we need to do, that we can do, that really have nothing to do with your development, but everything to do with how our traffic engineers start to reshape the way we're using those primary corridors. In terms of the architecture, I know as we're going off to A&S, it's going to be very important that we look at the issues, as Councilwoman Spector pointed out, relative to the view sheds from the condominiums, to protect those, and at the same time to respect the internal quality of life of the new neighborhood that's going to be living on that property. And I think that's something we haven't really mentioned. There's going to be a whole new group of people, a whole new group of Los Gatos people who will be living as your neighbors. And we hope that the neighborhoods will continue to be interactive as they have been on Placer Oaks and Oak Rim, but maybe even more so, with a whole new group coming in with a whole new neighborhood created. I really do appreciate the fact that the initial intensification, the number of units was reduced. I think it makes a lot of sense, because nowhere in our general plan or on the Boulevard plan did I read or even interpret that we wanted to intensify what we're doing out there. That doesn't seem to be part of our Los Gatos culture. But to create really good living spaces, really good commercial spaces, so that we can continue to act as a community. I think what you see there in that node, which I really appreciate, is actually probably the best fulfillment of that Los Gatos Boulevard mandate for creating nodes at significant intersections, which are basically meeting places where people can feel safe and comfortable, feel that they can walk without risk. That's why the node concept is in the Boulevard plan, and this, frankly, will be the only corner of that intersection that activates the node concept. If at a certain point in time the old Hollywood Video building were turned into something where actually people could access that site from that corner, that would go some ways towards doing it. But if you look around on the other side over Cornerstone, beautiful shopping center, but blocked at that corner at the very entrance to that shopping center by that office that doesn't access the center itself. So I give kudos to the architect for having looked at what the Boulevard plan says and actually developing something that we've been proposing, and which could be used as a model, I would say now, as we look at other developments down the Boulevard, because there are other significant intersections like Los Gatos Almaden and the Boulevard that's ripe for something happening there. So it's something that hasn't been addressed tonight, and it's something that I really encourage you to be stalwart on as you move into A&S. I have nothing further to say, Mr. Manager. Any information that you need from us at this point in time, any amendments that you want us to be aware of? All right, I see negatives all over there. So with that, I'd like to call the question. We have a motion to accept the Planning Commission's findings and recommendations, to uphold the Planning Commission's recommendations to adopt the mitigated negative deck and the mitigation monitoring plan, and to support and to adopt the findings supporting the zone change and approve the application. That is the motion with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. As I look at our agenda for tonight, I see no further items. We have therefore come to the end of our meeting, and this meeting.
Do you want to waive the reading of the ordinance and read the title? It doesn't say it
Nothing,
in there,
no.
but there's an
No.
ordinance here.
Wait. She's going to ask. Wait, do we need to? All right. We have one more item of business in relationship to this that was not indicated in the staff report, and that's, since this is an ordinance, we need to waive the reading, correct? Open, or actually read the ordinance and then waive the reading, okay? You want to read the title? Okay. Are you going to read the title?
I can read the title.
Please.
Ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos affecting zone change from CH to CHPD at 1605 16,005 Los Gatos Boulevard and 625 Blossom Hill Road.
All right, and we need a motion to waive the reading.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to waive the reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Does that conclude our business, Madam Attorney?
It does.
Thank you. All right, with that and no further business, meeting is adjourned.